Bonus. Galaxy reaction. At the depths of Coruscant, within the grand halls of the Sith, two figures sat in the shadows, watching the emergency holofeed of Supreme Chancellor Valorum's trembling announcement. The flickering blue light reflected off their robes, one draped in red, the other in dark, muted black. Darth Plagueis the Wise narrowed his eyes as he observed the sheer panic spreading throughout the Republic-controlled systems. Sidious, Plagueis spoke, his voice calm yet laced with tension. Why has our plan to expose the Republic's weakness turned into all-out terror? This has gone off the rails, far too much. Darth Sidious, still wearing the mask of Senator Palpatine, clasped his hands together, deep in thought. The original plan, he began, his voice slow and measured, was to exploit Senator Ranulph Tarkin's arrogance, to use his ego to provoke an attack on Stark Combine's fleet. That battle alone would have exposed the Republic's vulnerabilities without implicating us directly. His gaze darkened. But this is beyond my control. Plagueis remained silent for a moment before speaking again, his voice lower this time. And we both know that, Joe Everbidini, the fool eating ice cream, is nothing more than a fabricated identity. Palpatine nodded, his expression unreadable. Yes. And if this false identity is hiding the true threat, then we must consider the possibility that the same person behind this chaos is the one who managed to manipulate the Jedi into imprisoning me within the Jedi Temple for an entire day. Plagueis exhaled slowly. Because of that setback, I was forced to meditate for an extended period, exerting my full power just to mask your presence in the Force. The Jedi were far too close to sensing your true nature. His eyes narrowed. But now, the very balance of power is shifting in a way I did not foresee. The darkness I have spent my life shaping is being drowned by something far worse, something not of the dark side itself. Sidious furrowed his brow slightly. Then, what is your bidding, my master? Do we remain on course? Or must we create a new plan? Plagueis leaned back in his seat, his mind racing. His vision in the Force was murky, but he could feel the tremors in the galaxy, unnatural, unrelenting. The Yinkwari revolution is still in motion, Plagueis finally said, his voice measured. That conflict can still be used to weaken the Jedi further. But we need more than simple war, we need an inferno that engulfs everything in its path. His gaze turned toward the holofeed, where the image of Troikan's destruction played on repeat. This chaos is spreading like a wildfire against the very fabric of the galaxy. And I can feel it, something darker than anything I have never encountered before is coming. Sidious allowed a rare moment of silence to pass before speaking again. His lips curled into a sinister smirk. Then let us stoke the flames, my master. At the Jedi Temple, within the grand halls of the High Council chamber, only two Jedi Masters sat in silence, Master Yoda and Master Mace Windu. The room, usually filled with the wisdom of 12, now held only them. The reason was simple. Every other Jedi Master was leading extensive training across the Order. No longer were they just peacekeepers. The Jedi were now being reforged into something more, true guardians of the galaxy. The large doors to the chamber opened, and the returning Jedi stepped forward, Master Tyvoka, Plo Koon, Qui-Gon Jinn, and his Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Their expressions were grim, their robes still stained with soot and battle. Master Yoda's wise gaze studied them carefully. Safe, you have returned. Grateful, we are, he said, tapping his cane against the floor. However, Master Windu's deep voice followed, sharp and direct. The terror in the galaxy remains. And the one responsible for all of it, Joe Everbidini, is now the Republic's #1 enemy. His eyes narrowed. Master Tyvoka, explain. What did you experience? Tyvoka stepped forward, his tone firm despite the weight of his words. First off, the invincible flagship was completely overridden by an unknown force. Every screen displayed a single ominous message: you're all going to die down here. That was the first sign of disaster. Plo Koon nodded, stepping in. Then, without warning, the ventilation systems were compromised. A plague swept through the ship, affecting nearly the entire crew. They turned into creatures. The archives called them Rakghouls. However, the infection did not affect Jedi or any high-ranking officials. Mace Windu's brow furrowed, his fingers steepling. Strange. A bioweapon that spares Jedi. That is no coincidence. Tyvoka exhaled. It wasn't. The infection spread too deliberately. It was targeted. Whatever force was behind this, whoever orchestrated it, wanted only the common crew to fall. Yoda hummed in thought, his ears twitching. An experiment, this may have been. A test, perhaps, of something far worse to come. Obi-Wan, hesitant at first, finally spoke. It wasn't just the Rakghoul plague, masters. There was another horror aboard the ship. He looked at Ki-Gon, who nodded in agreement. The droid army of the Trade Federation turned on them. Every battle droid, every security droid. They weren't responding to their Nemodian commanders anymore. Qui-Gon's voice was grave. Someone, hacked into their systems and turned them into executioners. Mace Windu leaned back, his expression dark. So, in one move, Bidini dismantled a Republic fleet, decimated the Trade Federation, and sabotaged their entire battle droid network. His jaw clenched. We're dealing with something far beyond conventional war. This is pure chaos. Yoda closed his eyes for a moment before speaking again. The dark side, I feel in this. But deeper still, something beyond it, there is. His eyes slowly opened. Tell me. Joe ever Bidini, what else did he do? Tyvoka inhaled deeply. The worst of it, was the end. His voice became grim. We barely escaped in a stolen droid transport ship. But as we fled, we saw it. Plo Koon nodded solemnly. Troikan. Mace Windu's eyes locked onto them. Explain. Tyvoka's gaze was distant, as if recalling a nightmare. We saw it happen in real time. The destruction of an entire planet. Obi-Wan, his voice quiet but shaken, spoke next. A single faint beam of energy, traveling faster than anything I've ever seen. It struck the planet's core. And in an instant, he swallowed. Troikan was gone. Silence filled the chamber. Even the ever-stoic Mace Windu's fingers curled into fists. Yoda's ears flattened. Qui-Gon clenched his jaw. The Republic thinks it was Bidini's doing. His message played over every holoscreen. He called it Bidini Blast. Mace Windu's fingers tapped against the armrest of his chair. A weapon powerful enough to destroy a planet in an instant, yet unlike anything the Republic has ever built. His eyes darkened. We are not prepared for this war. Master Yoda's wise gaze slowly turned to Plo Koon. Plo Koon, as Tyvoka's Padawan, since I do that something more you wish to say. Speak, you may. Plo Koon nodded, his voice steady. Yes, Master. First, I must clarify, Master Tyvoka was shot by Trade Federation droids. Gunray, in his panic, used his remaining forces to target all of us. He was reckless and desperate. Obi-Wan frowned slightly. But for some reason, only a few battle droids remained truly loyal to Gunray. The rest had already turned against him. Master Windu's expression hardened. Then we categorized them alongside the Rakghouls. The enemy is testing its weapons, both biological and mechanical. He steepled his fingers. But I sense there is more you wish to speak of, Plo Koon. Tyvoka exhaled, nodding. There is. He took a deep breath before continuing. Someone saved me. He was the reason I am still alive. He regenerated my organs, sealed my wounds, an ability never I've seen before. We call him, the Armored Man. Master Yoda's ears perked. Armored, you say? Plo Koon continued, his self-proclaimed occupation was a beast hunter. But that hardly describes what he truly was. He wore the most advanced armor I have ever encountered. It could phase through solid structures like a ghost. And, more importantly, it blocked my lightsaber. Master Windu's brow furrowed. Beskar. Like Mandalorian iron. Plo Koon shook his head. No. Beskar is rare and difficult to shape. This was not Beskar. And he was not Mandalorian, he never wore their signature helmet, nor did he follow their customs. He carried a weapon, something that functioned like a lightsaber, yet fired a continuous beam of destruction. Not a plasma sword, but as a blaster. Mace Windu's expression darkened further. Let me guess, he's missing. Master Tyvoka's gaze lowered slightly. He sacrificed his life for us. He stayed behind on the Invincible, ensuring that the Rakghouls did not escape into space. Without him, we wouldn't have made it out alive. Silence filled the chamber. Even the normally composed masters felt the weight of the revelation. Yoda closed his eyes, deep in thought. A mystery, this armored man remains. If alive, seek him out, we must. If fallen, learn from his sacrifice, we will. Master Windu leaned forward. Regardless of who or what he was, we have two major concerns. 1. Bidini Blast has changed galactic warfare forever. 2. This armored man might hold secrets that could tip the scales in either direction. Tyvoka crossed his arms. Then we find out if he still lives. Because if he does, we need to know what he really is. Jinwoo stood at the bridge of the Invincible flagship once more, his arms crossed as he watched the chaotic aftermath of the battle. The sheer scale of devastation was beyond anything the Republic had ever seen. Entire fleets lay in ruins, planets scarred beyond recognition, and his name, Joe Everbidini, had been etched into history as the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Then, the familiar ping of a system notification appeared before his eyes. Dot 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 dot. Notification. Quest completed. Quest. Stark Hyperspace War complete. Description. Gain a bounty of 10 million credits from the war that is about to begin. Reward. 1. Shard of Kyber Crystal. 2. Companion Voucher X1. 3. Mantle's Approach Teleportation Location Voucher X1. Penalty for failure. Half of force abilities will be removed. Averted, nullified. Hidden reward unlocked. Due to reaching a 1 billion credit bounty, 100x the initial objective. 1. Full Kyber Crystal grants unparalleled connection to the Force, amplifying all abilities. 2. Blackstone Fortress Teleportation Voucher allows Jinwoo to claim and teleport to the legendary, indomitable Blackstone Fortress. 3. Supreme Galactic Infamy new passive title, Endbringer of the Republic. 4. A Sith holocron of a Dark Lord long forgotten, Darth Vitiate's personal holocron. 5. The right to claim Korriban as Throneworld, the planet is currently sealed until Jinwoo arrives. Dot 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 dot. Jinwoo tilted his head back and laughed. A deep, amused chuckle that echoed through the lifeless halls of the Invincible. Ha! Endbringer of the Republic, huh. That's a new one. His eyes scanned through the rewards, but it was the final item that caught his attention the most, Darth Vitiate's holocron. His grin widened. Ritual of Immortality holocron is already in my possession, but it requires Nathema's energy to unlock its secrets. And now, with this. His fingers curled into a fist. Double the power. Or maybe, succeed where those Sith Lords failed. Stark Hyperspace War 11, The Flood. Jinwoo's eyes flicked to the control panel, where a holoscreen displayed Ranulph Tarkin desperately fending off a pack of Rakghouls in the ship's kitchen. The senator was cornered, a knife in one hand, his other arm covered in scratches and minor wounds. He was sweating, his back pressed against a metallic counter as he gritted his teeth. Come on. Do your worst. Tarkin shouted, his voice laced with defiance despite the desperation in his eyes. Jinwoo smirked. The armored man, playing the hero, huh? He exhaled sharply. Sounds like a job for me. His exo-frame helmet slid back with a sleek mechanical hiss. Without hesitation, Jinwoo activated his phase shift ability, letting his body dissolve into transparent as he dropped straight through the ship's reinforced flooring. The cold metal phased through him like water, gravity pulling him downward in an instant. The moment his feet hit the ground, he was already moving. The kitchen was a mess, overturned tables, shattered food trays, spilled rations everywhere. The stench of decay mixed with burning plasma as malfunctioning heating units sparked violently. And in the center of it all, Tarkin, with nothing but a kitchen knife, surrounded by snarling Rakghouls. A split-second decision. Jinwoo's sentinel beam snapped up, FWOOOM. A single, precise shot of golden energy disintegrated the nearest Rakghoul. Before the others could react, he surged forward, fists clenched. Crack. Jinwoo drove his armored boot into the next Rakghoul's skull, sending its body crashing into the metal counter. It twitched once before going still. The last two lunged, but Jinwoo was faster. He twisted, grabbing the first one by the throat and slamming it into the ground with enough force to dent the floor. The second managed to reach for him, only for Jinwoo to pull out his cinder shot, firing a compressed energy round straight through its chest. The room fell silent. Tarkin, panting, stared at Jinwoo with wide eyes. Jinwoo turned to him, exo-frame armor gleaming under the flickering lights. Come with me if you want to live. Tarkin, still catching his breath, eyed Jinwoo with suspicion. Are you, Joe Everbidini? Jinwoo's expression deadpanned. The fuck do you think? Do I look like an old man to you? Tarkin hesitated, then quickly shook his head. Never mind. I have a personal starship docked nearby. Get me there safely, and I'll ensure you are rewarded. No, I'll make you my personal admiral. Jinwoo simply nodded, already moving. The journey through the corridors of the Invincible was a gauntlet of chaos. The ship was a graveyard, burning debris, ruptured pipelines spewing gas, flickering emergency lights illuminating claw marks on the walls. Rakghouls lurked in the shadows, their distorted figures crawling across ceilings and bursting through broken panels. But every time they got close, Jinwoo's sentinel beam cut them down before they even had a chance to scream. Tarkin followed closely, panting, gripping his side. You're insanely good at this. Jinwoo just kept walking. Finally, after 4 grueling minutes, they reached the personal hangar. Tarkin's starship was waiting, a sleek, silver vessel with a streamlined design, built for high-speed evasion and stealth. But there was one problem. Only one seat. Jinwoo glanced at it, then back at Tarkin. You go first. Tarkin stiffened, staring at him. You're staying behind. Jinwoo didn't answer immediately. He simply turned, lifting his sentinel beam, firing into the darkness as more rakghouls began pouring into the hangar bay. Tarkin clenched his fists. He could see it now, this man intended to sacrifice himself. His voice lowered. Tell me your name. Jinwoo didn't look back. Armored man. Tarkin hesitated, then nodded, stepping into his ship. When you survive, he paused, eyes narrowing, because I know you will come to Coruscant. I will repay this. I will make sure no trouble will ever touch you. Jinwoo smirked, eyes hidden beneath his helmet. We'll see. He fired another shot, disintegrating a rakghoul midleap. Now, can you go? Tarkin tightened his jaw. Then, without another word, he sealed the cockpit and launched into hyperspace, leaving the armored figure behind. Jinwoo lowered his sentinel beam, exhaling. Offensive bias, he muttered, his voice calm, thanks for sparing him. Acknowledged, the AI responded in its cold, analytical tone. The legend of the armored man must persist to combat the tyranny of Joe Everbidini. Jinwoo chuckled, shaking his head. Hey, both of them are actually me. Jinwoo's helmet interface flickered as a new notification appeared before his eyes. Notification. Hidden quest successful. Dot 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 comma dot. Hidden quest title. Be the hero completed. Description. Saving Senator Ranulph Tarkin and Master Tyvoka while enacting the legendary act of Kyle Reese from Terminator, ensuring survival through self-sacrifice. Reward. Galaxy Hero, new passive title. I am Armored Man. Note. This title only applies to the persona of the Armored Man or Jinwoo should his name be revealed. Similar to Endbringer of the Republic, it only affects the name Joe Everbidini. Dot 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 dot. Jinwoo let out a small chuckle as he read through the reward. The Sigma title actually does have its uses, he mused. Aura farming works well when you play the hero, just like I did with Tarkin and the Jedi. He exhaled, shaking his head. The galaxy now had 2 legends to whisper about. One, the Armored Man, a figure of salvation and heroism. The other, Joe Everbidini, the butcher who reduced a planet to rubble with a single attack. And he was both. Jinwoo emerged from the shadows, materializing on the Republic flagship Invincible's command bridge once more. He exhaled, adjusting his exoframe as he walked forward. Offensive bias, show me the holofeed. I want to see the condition of your crazy act on the Raptor, Stark's flagship, and the rest of Stark's fleet. Without hesitation, offensive bias activated the holofeed. Before Jinwoo, holographic displays flickered to life, showcasing the horrifying state of the Raptor and the 5 Koloth-style battle cruisers, along with the 5 Vainglorious-class battle cruisers. The ships were in absolute chaos, twisted corridors filled with writhing masses of flood spores, grotesque flood combat forms crawling over walls, corpses twitching as infection forms consumed them. The Raptor, Stark's personal flagship, was the worst of them all. The bridge was barely recognizable. What was once a proud warship of a criminal empire had become a nightmarish breeding ground for the parasite. Jinwoo's gaze remained fixed on the Raptor, ignoring the rest. His voice was firm. You've ensured the ship stays offline, right? If just one flood escapes to another planet, it'll create a new gravemind. Acknowledged. Offensive bias responded coldly. Containment measures remain absolute. No vessel has left the quarantine zone. All attempts to escape have been terminated. Any organic presence within these ships has been classified as compromised and dealt with accordingly. Sentinel forces have ensured that no infection forms remain intact outside of containment. Jinwoo exhaled slightly, satisfied with the answer. Good, he muttered. One grave mind was already pushing the line. We don't need another. His gaze remained on the holofeed a little longer, watching as sentinels continued their systematic purging of the infested ships. Then, his eyes narrowed. At the raptor's hangar, something different was forming. A grotesque, bulbous mass pulsed at the center of the ruined vessel, writhing with the constant growth of flood biomass. Amidst the twisted flesh and sinew, a face could still be made out, partially human, yet unmistakably changed. Jinwoo smirked. Yako Stark, becoming the vessel of a protograve mind. How poetic. His voice carried an amused, almost mocking tone. You tried to carve your name into the stars, but instead, you've become the worst nightmare this galaxy has ever faced. If you ever escape, anyway. Affirmative, offensive bias confirmed. Yako Stark was the most intellectually capable organic onboard the Raptor. This made him a prime candidate for assimilation. The flood instinctively gathered around his body, repurposing his mind to form a protograve mind. Jinwoo took a slow breath. Then, with a simple motion, he released his exo-frame. The armor that had been suppressing his presence peeled away, revealing his true form. His shadow monarch aura, which had been shackled within the armored shell, erupted outward. The dark energy coiled around him like living tendrils, warping the air itself. The pressure alone caused the nearest sentinels to pause for a brief second, recalculating their sensory data. Jinwoo flexed his fingers. Offensive bias, slipspace me to the Raptor's hangar. I want to see Stark's last moments myself. Affirmative, Supreme Executor, the AI responded. However, I must issue a warning. Prolonged exposure to flood biomass may result in attempted assimilation. Infection is an inevitable result for any organic within range. Jinwoo smirked, stepping forward. Looks like I need to educate you about physique later, bias. You're worrying too much. Before offensive bias could respond, reality bent. A slipspace rupture tore open before Jinwoo, and in the next instant, he was gone. The Raptor's hangar was a writhing nest of horror. Flood biomass had overtaken the structure, pulsing and shifting as it consumed metal and flesh alike. The air reeked of decay, and the grotesque sound of bone snapping and flesh twisting echoed through the ruined ship. Some of the infected forms had already evolved. Stalkers clung to the walls, their elongated limbs twitching with unnatural speed, while tank forms lumbered forward, their bloated bodies reinforced with layers of hardened muscle and chitinous plating. Among them, the remaining pirate hosts, twisted, barely recognizable, raised their blasters, their movements eerily synchronized as they detected an anomaly. A slipspace rupture opened. The flood turned their attention toward it, their grotesque minds preparing to swarm whatever emerged. But they never got the chance. The first to step out of the distortion was Beru, the Shadow Ant King. Before the infected pirates could even fire, Beru was already among them. His claws flashed, black chitinous blades cleaving through their bodies in an instant. The mutated forms never even screamed, they were simply torn apart, their pieces scattering across the corrupted hangar floor. Beru turned his gaze toward the growing hordes of pure flood forms. His voice echoed like a commander delivering a decree. The Liege is coming. Show respect. A second figure emerged from the slipspace breach. It was Bellion, the former ruler of a once proud race, now the highest-ranking knight under the Shadow Monarch's command. In his hands, he wielded his massive chainsword, the jagged weapon roaring as it tore through the incoming flood pure forms. Flesh and bone were shredded apart, the unholy creatures falling before his might. As the corpses fell, the air itself seemed to shudder. A ripple of dark energy spread through the hangar. Shadows surged, forming into thousands of armored figures, each one kneeling in perfect unison. Shadow Knights, their blackened armor glinting under the dim, flickering lights, lined up in disciplined ranks. Behind them, massive orcs stood shoulder to shoulder, their hulking frames exuding pure killing intent. Then, the shadows shifted. From the depths of the abyss, he emerged. Jinwoo stepped forward, his presence warping reality itself. At that moment, the entire hangar seemed to stop. The kneeling army of shadows raised their voices in unison, their chant reverberating through the halls with absolute devotion. My liege, your life shall endure beyond the universe itself. The very air trembled with the sound. The flood, mindless, instinct-driven horrors, hesitated. Even they, creatures of pure destruction, could sense it. Jinwoo stood before the grotesque mass that was once Yako Stark, his gaze cold and unwavering. His eyes now glowed a deep, ominous purple, the sign that his second anchor was solidifying. 2 out of 4. He could feel his power returning, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. He would perfect the rest. The proto-grave mind twitched, its grotesque form pulsating as it attempted to speak. Stark's half-formed face, still barely recognizable amid the writhing mass of flood tissue, twisted into a sneer. Bidini, my ass, Stark gurgled, his voice distorted and wet. Everyone played by you, and even you are evil. From Jinwoo's shadow, Igris emerged, his form a swirling storm of deep purple and black, a manifestation of pure, undying loyalty. Without hesitation, Igris raised his blade, ready to behead the wretched husk of Yako Stark. Jinwoo raised a hand, stopping him with a simple gesture. Stark let out something resembling a laugh, though it was garbled by the flood tissue consuming him. What is it? Don't tell me you actually want to negotiate after leaving me like this. The remnants of his old cunning, of the man who had once tried to rule the galaxy through credits and manipulation, flickered in his dying mind. Jinwoo exhaled, raising a hand as shadows coiled beneath him, forming a throne of pure darkness. He sat down leisurely, one leg resting over the other, his gaze locked onto the pulsating, mutating mass of what was once Yako Stark. The flood-ridden pirate still had a sliver of consciousness, but it was fading fast. Soon, there would be nothing left of Stark, only the collective will of the parasite that had infested him. Jinwoo began, his tone almost conversational. Flood life cycles are interesting. You're still in the proto-grave mind stage. Right now, you're just a pile of flesh with a few scattered thoughts. But in a few years, maybe even sooner, you'll be something more. The whispers in your head will merge into one. You'll begin to remember everything from every infected mind. You'll gain knowledge beyond anything you could have imagined as a mere pirate. Stark twitched, his half-melded face barely capable of forming an expression. His corrupted eye rolled toward Jinwoo, his voice slurred and wet. Are you just gone senile, Bidini? Jinwoo smirked but didn't respond to Stark. Instead, his eyes burned with a deeper glow as he leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. I'm not talking to you, Stark, he said smoothly. I'm talking to it. The tendrils of the flood surrounding Stark pulsed, shifting slightly, as if reacting to his words. You're a long way from home, aren't you? Jinwoo continued, his voice quiet but filled with authority. You were meant to infest the Forerunners' galaxy. You were their great nightmare, their ultimate downfall. But here, this is my domain. And the moment you arrived here, you met me, the Shadow Monarch. The flood husk trembled. The air seemed to grow heavier as Jinwoo's power oozed out, suffocating, absolute. You'll remember everything I say. All of you will. He leaned back into his throne, his smirk growing wider. You are not the apex predator anymore. Not in this galaxy. You are nothing but prey now. The flood didn't respond, not with words. But the room itself seemed to shudder as if the entity itself understood the weight of his declaration. Jinwoo reached forward, his fingers curling into the remaining strands of Yako Stark's matted, half-infected hair. The pirate's distorted, grotesque face twitched as he was yanked forward, forced to stare directly into the abyss of Jinwoo's glowing purple eyes. For a moment, the two locked gazes, one man, one monster. And yet, there was no mistaking who truly held power here. Jinwoo smirked. Then, with a sudden, brutal motion, he snapped Stark's jaw to the side with an audible crack. A gargled, wet sound spilled from the protograveman's throat as its lower jaw now hung uselessly, its body twitching violently. Whatever Stark had left to say, whatever final attempt at defiance he had, was gone. Jinwoo's grip loosened, letting the infected pirate slump back into the mass of writhing flood biomass. When you finally form, he said slowly, when you become a true grave mind, you will say it. I am a monument to all your sins. But no, that's not quite right. He leaned in just a little closer, his presence suffocating. When we meet eye to eye, face to face, even you will die permanently. The flood spasmed. Something within it understood. Something deeper than mere instincts, a realization of true, inescapable predation. You will serve as another anchor of mine, Jinwoo continued, his voice unwavering. In this cruel galaxy, or anywhere else, the only rule is kill or be killed. He let go of Stark's ruined head, watching as it lolled to the side, the proto-grave mind struggling just to comprehend the inevitability before it. 0 comments 0 vote. End of Stark Hyperspace War Arc, Prologue Mandalorian Civil War. Jinwoo turned away without another word. His footsteps echoed through the silent, infested corridors of the Raptor flagship, his presence alone sending ripples of unnatural dread through the grotesque mass of flood infection that lined the walls. Its infestation, twisted biomass pulsed against the metal, neural strands stretching like veins, reaching for prey that no longer existed. Yet none of the flood dared approach him. They knew. They understood. Jinwoo was not prey. He was the predator. His purple eyes gleamed in the dim glow of the ship's failing emergency lights as he raised his hand. His shadows swirled at his feet, their forms rising, waiting in reverence for his decree. Cleanse this abominable filth, he commanded, his voice calm yet absolute. The power behind his words carried through the ship, a death sentence. But leave the proto-grave mind in the hangar. It will serve its purpose soon. The moment his command was issued, a low, unsettling clank echoed as Beru took a step forward. The Shadow Ant King, clad in his monstrous, plated exoskeleton, bowed his head slightly before raising his sharp claws in fervent acknowledgement. The monarch has spoken. Beru's voice reverberated through the shadows, laced with fervor and anticipation. Then we shall cut the path itself. A collective murmur spread through the gathered Shadow Legion, a deep, guttural chant rising from their ranks, spoken in unison, an unbreakable vow to their king. Glory to the monarch. The darkness surged. Beru was the first to move. With a blinding flash, his form disappeared, reappearing in the thick of the flood's twisted biomass. The ship screamed as he carved through the infection with brutal efficiency, his razor-edged claws slicing through flesh and bone alike. The flood reacted instinctively, shifting, warping, attempting to reform and consume, but the shadow ants, his loyal swarm, descended upon them like a biblical plague. They tore through the grotesque, writhing mass without hesitation, the very essence of the shadow monarch coursing through their forms, making them untouchable, incorruptible. There was no battle. There was only extermination. The flood-infested corridors burned with black shadows, shadow soldiers cutting through the infestation with absolute, merciless precision. Combat forms shrieked as they were ripped apart mid-transformation, carrier forms detonated uselessly, their infectious payloads dissipating into nothing before they could spread. Even the walls, lined with the grotesque neural strands of the flood's creeping intelligence, were shredded and consumed by the overwhelming darkness. Yet, as commanded, one chamber remained untouched, the hangar section where the proto-grave mind pulsed ominously, awaiting its fate. Jinwoo stood at the center of the carnage, unmoving, unfazed, his purple eyes watching as his shadows cleansed the ship of its infestation. This was no mere battle, it was a ritualistic purge, a statement that even the Great Flood, an apex predator of the universe, was nothing in the presence of the monarch. The echoes of the purge disappear, leaving only the sound of the ship's failing systems and the distant, grotesque sound of the proto-grave mind in the hangar. Jinwoo remained standing at the center of it all, surrounded by his kneeling shadow soldiers, the darkness at his command having swept through the flood like a divine plague. The Raptor flagship, once a vessel of greed and power, had been transformed into a silent tomb. With a slow breath, Jinwoo turned away, his cloak of shadows shifting as he moved through the desolate corridors, his footfalls now the only sound in the vast emptiness. His path led him back to the bridge, where flickering holoscreens continued to display the fractured remains of Stark Combine's influence, alongside maps of fleet positions and hyperspace routes. He placed a hand on the command console, exhaling through his nose as he took in the sight of his work. The galaxy was shifting, whether it realized it or not. Offensive Bias's voice resonated through Jinwoo's helmet, cold and precise. Report to Supreme Executor. All essential data required for future domination has been successfully extracted. The immortal army of the Supreme Executor has eradicated the majority of the flood infestation, with the sole exception of the proto-grave mind residing in the hangar. Jinwoo's fingers tapped idly against the console. How long until a full grave mind is cultivated? He asked. I don't need it now. The moment it's completed, the flood will start thinking, coordinating. Infection will spread at an uncontrollable rate. Offensive Bias didn't hesitate. Clarification. The proto-grave mind has already entered the later stages of formation. Given current conditions, it will reach full sentience in approximately 11 years under standard development processes. However, acceleration is possible should Supreme Executor desire. Jinwoo's fingers drummed against the console. And what's the minimum space required for it to fully form? Assessment. The spatial requirements for a complete grave mind exceed that of the Raptor flagship. The biomass necessary for continued expansion would soon compromise the ship's structural integrity. A significantly larger containment area will be required. Jinwoo's smirk deepened. Then we need a place to let it grow, somewhere far enough that it won't be a problem until I decide to use it. Offensive Bias continued. Suggestion. A controlled flood incubation zone may be established within a secured planetary location, provided adequate biomass supply and suppression protocols. Alternatively, containment aboard a derelict megastructure in deep space would provide long-term security until the Supreme Executor requires deployment. Jinwoo's eyes narrowed as he studied the flickering holofeed. It displayed a lone asteroid base near the Kotl system, previously used by Stark Combine for private dealings, now abandoned in the emerge of Joever Bidini's planetary destruction. The entire region had become a ghost sector, void of life, as the galaxy recoiled in fear of the devastation that had unfolded. Of course, he thought. The Bidini blast scared everyone off. No one dares step near that cursed place anymore. Offensive bias, he said, still watching the holofeed. How about the hidden asteroid base Stark used near Kotal? It's already abandoned, out of sight, and isolated. Negative, offensive bias responded immediately. The available spatial capacity remains insufficient for a developing grave mind. The flood will instinctively seek additional biomass, and should containment measures fail, it will immediately spread to the nearest planetary bodies. Jinwoo clicked his tongue in annoyance. The last thing he needed was for the grave mind to go rampant before it was ready. If it latched onto a planet too soon, it could evolve beyond his control. He needed something bigger, something that could hold it without triggering an accelerated outbreak. His gaze shifted back to the remaining ships in the system. Derelict warships floated aimlessly in the debris field of the battle, the graveyard of the Stark hyperspace war. Among them, he saw Republic cruisers, 4 heavily damaged Lucree hulks from the Trade Federation, and the wreckage of Stark Combine's own infested vessels. A floating mass of ships, hollowed out and abandoned. Jinwoo's smirk returned. Then we make it bigger, combine the wrecked ships near the hidden asteroid base in the Kotal system. Link them together. Make them into one massive containment structure. Processing, offensive bias calculated for a moment. Confirmed. The proposed amalgamation of derelict vessels will provide sufficient mass to act as a temporary flood containment zone. Jinwoo leaned forward slightly. And if it still isn't enough, lure in more. But make sure the ships belong to rogue factions or abandoned fleets. No Republic vessels. The Jedi are granted title of the true guardians of the galaxy now. If they sense a growing infection, they'll move in before we're ready. Acknowledged. The Jedi's newfound ideological shift will likely lead to an increased militarized presence. Avoiding Republic entanglements is optimal for long-term strategic viability. Jinwoo grinned. Good. Then let's build our monster a proper graveyard to rest in, until I wake it up. Jinwoo let out a breath, his grin lingering as his form slowly sank into darkness. The world around him dissolved, consumed by an infinite abyss as he submerged into the world of eternal slumber, his personal shadow realm. As his body vanished into the swirling void. Then, an alert. A subtle but distinct shift in offensive bias's internal systems. Warning. Supreme Executor's neural link, severed. The AI processed the anomaly instantly, its vast computational mind running through countless scenarios within microseconds. His connection to Jinwoo had never been interrupted before, this was an unknown variable. Search, all, galaxy, offensive biases cold, mechanical voice echoed through the empty corridors. Supreme Executor, has been swallowed by. Before the AI could finish, a new presence emerged. A heavy landing resonated as Belian, the greatest of Jinwoo's marshal, the Grand Marshal, stepped forward from the shadows. His massive, armor-clad figure radiated silent authority, the eerie glow of his black and purple form reflecting off the dim lighting. The towering knight simply crossed his arms and spoke. Do not be afraid, machine construct. His liege has merely returned to his realm. A moment of silence. Then, acknowledged. Offensive bias processed the information, recalculating the situation. The absence of Supreme Executor requires a representative for immediate operations, the AI continued, its logic-driven mind adapting. Designating one of the Immortal Army as acting liaison. Belian nodded, his form shifting as he prepared to depart. Before leaving, he turned his gaze toward offensive bias's nearest sentinel drone. What of the girl? The one named Rey. She still remains on Halo Installation 07, Zeta Halo. Offensive bias processed the query before responding. Rey has been designated as an independent factor. What directive should be provided? Belian smirked, a rare flicker of amusement crossing his usually emotionless demeanor. Tell her this, train hard. His liege, Jinwoo, will evaluate her. That should be motivation enough. With those final words, Belian's form dissolved into darkness, vanishing back into the void of the Shadow Realm. Offensive bias, left alone on the Raptor's now purged bridge, recalculated the next phase of the Supreme Executor's plan. Affirmative. Transmission will be relayed accordingly. Then, with calculated precision, the AI issued its next command. Operation. Create Grave Mind, commence. A low mechanical hum filled the ship as slipspace portals began to open. Sentinels vanished into the rifts, their cold, unfeeling task now set into motion. Jinwoo opened his eyes. The world around him stretched into infinity, the dimension of eternal slumber. A vast, limitless expanse of darkness, where the only illumination came from the towering figures kneeling before him, his army. Millions of shadow soldiers stood in unwavering silence, their black and purple forms motionless, waiting for their king's command. At the center of it all, Jinwu sat upon his throne, a monolithic structure of pure black stone, pulsing faintly with energy. From this place, he ruled his legion, commanding forces that could end entire civilizations at his whim. Before anything else, a notification screen materialized before him. Notification. Status window. Name. Sung Jinwu 2/4 second anchor, the dark side anchor. Age. Unknown. Level. 16, low-level Jedi Knight, low-level Sith Warrior. Express. 0.600,000. Occupation. Unknown. Midichlorian count. 50,000, second anchor realized. Money. 5 million credits. Equipment for battle. Vectivus lightsaber, black-colored blade. Proto-didact exoframe. Sentinel beam. Cindershot. AI helper. Offensive bias. Despondent pyre. Inventory. Incomplete Starforge X1. Holocrons of Sith Shrine, still being analyzed. Holocron. Ritual of Immortality. Blood Kyber Crystals X30. Kyber Crystal Shard X2, bound to Jinwu. Sith Warblade. Sith Alchemy Relics. Other Sith Shrine relics, still being analyzed. 5x Gotcha Vouchers. Zeta Halo Ownership. Revan's Armor and Mask. Companion Voucher X2. Mantle's Approach Teleportation Location Voucher X1. Full Kyber Crystal X1, bound to Jinwu. Blackstone Fortress Teleportation Voucher X1. Darth Vitiate's Personal Holocron X1. Force Abilities. Force Ghost. Force Phantom. Force Jump. Force Pull Push. Midichlorian Manipulation, locked. Midichlorian count not sufficient. Force Lightning. Force Throw. Force Telekinesis. Mind Control, Manipulation. Force Choke. Force Drain. Mechu Daru. Naga Sato's Force Ability. Projective Telepathy, Battle Meditation. Transfer Essence. Skills and Passive Abilities. Master Swordsmanship. Expert Marksmanship. Adept Telekinetic Lightsaber Combat. Sith Alchemy. Skill. Moor Talisman. Right to claim Korriban as Throneworld. Titles. Sigma buffs aura farming and charismatic speech toward crowds. Level. Adept. Endbringer of the Republic, only affects Joever Bidini. Causes one of the greatest calamities in galactic history, creating a passive effect of fear towards every faction, except Abeloth. I am Armored Man, only affects Armored Man, or Jinwu when using the exoframe unmasked. Seen as a hero against the crisis. Holds great reputation with Republic senators, and Jedi, especially Senators Ranulph Tarkin. Jinwu smirked as he closed the notification window and leaned back into his throne. He could feel it, his second anchor had brought him closer to power, unlocking more of his true potential. But it was still not enough. Notification. Status window, scanning Shadow Monarch power. Error. Unable to fully analyze power due to incomplete anchoring within this galaxy. Jinwu narrowed his eyes slightly. Of course, even with 2 anchors secured, it still isn't enough to fully break the restrictions in this place. Notification. Choice required. Select a path to further unlock the Shadow Monarch's power in the Star Wars galaxy. Slumber until the Yinkori Uprising 33 BBY. Bonus. Shadow Monarch power increased by 5% total. 55% within the Star Wars galaxy. Single quote. Wait until the Mandalorian Civil War 42-40 BBY. Bonus. Rewards outside of this galaxy will be added. Jinwu didn't hesitate. Selection. Mandalorian Civil War. He smirked. I never liked sleeping too long anyway. As the notification disappeared, Jinwu leaned forward, resting his elbow against the throne's armrest. The Mandalorian Civil War, a perfect opportunity. Not only would it give him another anchor, but it would expand his reach beyond just this galaxy. For 2 years, Jinwu remained in the dimension of eternal slumber, watching his kingdom of shadows expand, refining his control, waiting for the right moment. He had modified Force Drain, strengthening it, but something was still missing, something that made it incomplete. And then, finally, the time had come. As he moved forward, darkness enveloped him. His shadow travel activated, swallowing his form into an abyss of swirling black mist. In the blink of an eye, he was gone from his throne, transported through the Shadow Monarch's domain, his form gliding across dimensions. 2 comments 0 vote. Mandalorian Civil War 1, Prologue. Then, solid ground. A dim, cavernous landscape stretched before him. Mandalore. The air was thick with silence, untouched by life. This was one of the ancient caves, forgotten, abandoned. A place where warriors of old had once gathered, long before the civil war that was now brewing. The air smelled of dust and rusted metal, the faint remnants of past battles still lingering. As Jinwoo stepped forward, a familiar voice resonated through the darkness. Welcome back, Supreme Executor. A cold, mechanical voice. Offensive bias. In an instant, the protodidact exoframe reassembled itself around Jinwoo's body. Mechanical components latched onto his form, piece by piece, seamlessly covering him in an armored shell. His helmet clicked into place, his glowing eyes now concealed behind the smooth, unreadable faceplate. Jinwoo flexed his fingers, feeling the weight of the armor settle over him like a second skin. Good to be back, he murmured, his voice echoing slightly through the mask. He glanced around the cave, his instincts sharpening immediately. It was silent, too silent. A natural hiding spot, yet something about it felt untouched, undisturbed for far too long. Offensive bias's voice crackled through the helmet's interface. Suggestion added. Battle of Corta 6. Key individuals identified. Jaster Mariel and Jango Fett. If successfully persuaded to Supreme Executor's cause, reputation as the armored man will be significantly bolstered. Jinwoo narrowed his eyes. Jaster Mariel, Mandalore of the true Mandalorians, and Jango Fett, his successor. Interesting. Before he could respond, a notification flickered to life across his vision. Notification. Event quest activated. Quest. Mandalorian Civil War. Description. Ensure Satine Kryze becomes the undisputed ruler of Mandalore while the Death Watch is severely weakened, but still has a chance to regroup. Gain legitimacy in both Mandalore and the Republic. Secure 20% of Mandalore's Beskar supply. Change the fate of Jango Fett and Jaster Mariel. Rewards. Holocron of Nomi Sunrider. 1x Companion Voucher. British Lost Belt Teleportation Voucher, Fate Grand Order, English Lost Belt. Hashtag penalty for failure. Loss of second anchor. Note. Do not eliminate the Death Watch entirely, ensure they are severely weakened, but still survive to regroup. Jinwoo blinked twice. British Lost Belt. Fate Grand Order. That was unexpected. The holocron and the political leverage made sense, but this had potential beyond just this galaxy. Offensive bias's voice came through the interface. Supreme Executor, you appear momentarily disrupted. Visual indicators suggest a brief lapse in concentration. Jinwoo exhaled slowly, blue eyes glinting with realization. No, it's nothing. A cold smirk curled across his face. Things just keep getting better. And I have a feeling this Morgan Le Fay might have more in common with me than I thought. He raised his hand, 2 fingers extended, and without another word, offensive bias responded instantly. Slip space initiated. Reality folded in on itself in a brief, blue distortion, and Jinwoo vanished. The next moment, he stood atop the streets of Sundari, the domed capital of Mandalore. The curved skyline loomed overhead, its gleaming, metallic buildings intact, the protective dome still sealing the city from the desolate wastelands beyond. But something lingered in the air, unease. Though the city was physically unharmed, its spirit was fractured. Satine Kryze, the pacifist ruler, was gone, evacuated under Jedi protection after multiple assassination attempts. Her absence left a void, and with her pacifist ideals in question, many civilians saw her departure as abandonment. But as Jinwoo strode across the thoroughfare in his blackened exo-frame, each step drawing a resonant metallic thud, heads turned. Murmurs rippled across the crowd. Whispers of a man clad in armor, who walked alone through fire and plague aboard the Invincible. The armored man. And now, he walked among them. People parted in his path like a tide. Eyes wide. Conversations halted. Some reached for holopads. Others just stared. Then, a child broke from the edge of the crowd, a small boy, no older than 8, rushing toward him with a wrinkled piece of paper and a tiny pencil clutched in his hand. Armored man. The boy called out, standing directly in Jinwoo's path. Can you sign this for me? Jinwoo stared down at the child silently. Then, without a word, he reached out, took the paper, and with a flick of his hand, sliced it into 4 perfect pieces. Get lost, he muttered. The boy blinked. Then his face lit up with the widest grin. Thank you, armored man. He shouted, scooping up the shredded pieces like they were sacred relics. He bolted back to his family, waving the fragments in his hands, yelling, look. He signed it. He's so cool. Jinwoo didn't stop walking. He didn't look back. But in the corner of his eye, he saw something. A spark. A flicker. A flame reigniting in the people's faces. Hope, rising in the ruins of this hopeless capital city. Then came a sound from ahead. The clanking of armor, boots stomping across Sundari's metallic streets. A group of Death Watch soldiers dragged a civilian woman by her hair toward the center square. The lead soldier, a nameless brute with jagged plating and a battered T-shaped visor, yanked her forward and barked to the gathered citizens. Your so-called leader, Satine cries, the coward pacifist, abandoned you. Left this city, this world, to rot in silence. And this worthless wretch still dares to preach her ideals, preach that peace was the answer. He raised a blaster. Let this be the consequence of treason. But the civilian was no longer there. The square went silent. The blaster aimed at air. Gasps echoed around the plaza as everyone turned. The woman now stood beside Jinwoo. Confused. Blinking. Alive. She hadn't moved, she had been moved. In an instant. Offensive bias's voice clicked in Jinwoo's comms. Civilian relocated via Shortrange slipspace. No visual disruption detected. Illusion of teleportation maintained. The Death Watch soldier stiffened. You interfered with our leader's justice. Are you defying the will of Tor Vizsla? But before he could say more, another Death Watch member stepped forward and hissed, hey, don't be stupid. That's him. That's the armored man. The first soldier hesitated. What? The one from the Invincible, the other said quietly. The plague ship. Rumors say he fought the Rakghols alone, held the hangar, rescued Jedi, Senator Tarkin. Hell, they say he killed the infection with just his fists. All eyes turned to Jinwoo. But he said nothing. He didn't even stop walking. He simply ignored them. However, the Death Watch wasn't about to let him walk away so easily. Their jetpacks fired to life, and in an instant, the soldiers rocketed in front of him, blocking his path. The lead soldier, his voice dripping with arrogance, raised his weapon and sneered. It's our lucky day. Our leader, Tor Vizsla, wants your armor tech. You can come with us, or we'll drag your corpse back. The air grew tense. The atmosphere around Jinwoo began to shift, becoming suffused with a dark, almost suffocating presence. A hiss broke the silence as the right half of his helmet slid open, revealing only one eye. That single eye glowed, not blue, but a deep, overwhelming purple. His presence thickened. The shadows at his feet twitched unnaturally. Notification. Emergency quest activated. Quest. Kill the enemies. Description. There are people who want to kill the Shadow Monarch. Eliminate all threats. Ensure your dominance. Reward. 600,000 EXP, Force Rage. Penalty for failure. Lose all anchors. Permanent banishment from this galaxy. Jinwoo's lips curled into a sinister smile, his voice low and brimming with thrill. Hoo, ahahahaha. It's been too long. Too long since I've felt this much excitement. The plaza fell deathly silent. The Death Watch soldiers instinctively staggered back. One of them whispered, trembling, what the hell is he? Jinwoo didn't answer. Instead, in a flash of movement, he summoned the black-bladed lightsaber, Vectivus lightsaber. With a single arc, he cleaved through the closest Death Watch soldier. The blade, darker than midnight, shimmered with oppressive energy. The body hit the ground before the sound of the cut caught up. One of the soldiers gasped. The Darksaber. But it's supposed to be with our leader, Tor Vizsla. Too late. Jinwoo raised his left hand. Crackling black electricity exploded from his fingers. Force lightning. 5 soldiers were caught in the arc, writhing in agony as black lightning engulfed their bodies, burning through their armor, their screams echoing across the square. One by one, they collapsed, smoking, twitching husks. Only 2 remained. Jinwoo stepped forward, and reached out his hand again. Force drain. The shadow swirled beneath the second-to-last Mandalorian. His body convulsed violently as life force was sucked from every inch of his form. Within seconds, he disintegrated into dust, leaving only the leader. The last Death Watch soldier, pinned, trembling, raised his arm in weak defiance. If you kill me, there goes the ideal of pacifism. The same one that Satine cries stands for. You destroy her dream with your actions. Jinwoo didn't speak. His smirk deepened. With a flick of his fingers, he raised the man into the air using force telekinesis. The soldier kicked and thrashed, floating just above the center of the plaza. Civilians watched, horrified, silent, as Jinwoo slowly clenched his hand. The man's arm tore free from his shoulder, ripped away cleanly by invisible force. Blood sprayed across the polished tiles. Screams erupted from the crowd. The horror on their faces wasn't just at the violence. It was realization. A public execution. Jinwoo stood beneath the levitating, twitching body, his cold gaze unblinking, his voice flat. Shouldn't you be worried about your own fate, huh? He asked, tilting his head ever so slightly. The last Death Watch soldier, gritting through the pain, gasped out, if I tell you something that's about to happen in the next 10 minutes, will you let me go? Jinwoo said nothing. Only silence. The soldier took that as a lifeline. The Battle of Korta, he coughed. It's about to happen. Jaster Mariel, he's going down with it. Jinwoo's head shifted slightly. That's very good information, he said. But I was already aware of it. Thanks for the heads up. The soldier's eyes widened. Wait, you said. I didn't say anything, Jinwoo interrupted calmly. People always misinterpret silence. The soldier's breath caught in his throat. You said. Jinwoo raised his hand. The air around the soldier suddenly compressed with a thunderous snap. His body imploded midair, exploding in a geyser of blood and shredded armor. A rain of gore poured down in a wide arc over the stone street, painting the square in crimson mist. The crowd screamed. Some fell to their knees. Others backed away in utter terror. And Jinwoo, he didn't flinch. Notification. Emergency quest completed. Quest. Kill the enemies completed. Description. There are people who want to kill the Shadow Monarch. Eliminate all threats. Ensure your dominance. Reward. 600,000 EXP. Force Rage has evolved into Force Enrage due to hidden optional objective completed. Optional objective completed. Reveal that the armored man is not a goody two-shoes in the capital city of Mandalore. Penalty for failure. Lose all anchors. Permanent banishment from this galaxy. Nulled. He simply walked forward, his boots splashing through the blood. No remorse. No pause. Just progress. Jinwoo lifted his gaze to the horrified onlookers. You hear that? Offensive bias. Affirmative, came the AI's voice. Processing data and integrating fear signatures across all observation networks. Slip space engagement commencing. Destination. Korta 6. The world around Jinwoo folded in on itself in a ripple of black and violet, and then, he was gone. 1 comments 0 vote. Mandalorian Civil War 2. Korta 6. Korta 6. War-torn, scorched, broken. On one side of the battlefield, Jaster Mariel, battered and pinned, stood shoulder to shoulder with a younger, determined Jango Fett. The true Mandalorians were outnumbered, Montrose's betrayal cutting deep. Blaster fire lit the rocky ridgelines as Death Watch forces, led by Tor Vizsla himself, began their final push. Jango, Hold the left flank. Buy me time to reposition. Jaster barked, ducking behind cover. Django nodded and sprinted, already pulling the pin on a thermal detonator. Across the field, Tor Vizsla raised a hand. This is it. Kill Jaster Mariel and end the true Mandalorians for good. The sky darkened. A blinding streak tore across the battlefield like a comet. The impact hit the center line between both armies with enough force to send shockwaves across the canyon, sending bodies flying, dirt upheaved, weapons scattered. Both sides froze as dust choked the air. A deep clank echoed. And from the crater, emerged the armored man. Jinwoo stood upright, steam rising from his exo frame, his presence heavy enough to weigh down every heartbeat around him. Purple energy flickered around his shoulders. His gaze swept both armies like judgment itself. Django blinked, stunned. Jaster, did you hire the armored man? Jaster, just as confused, shook his head slowly. I don't even know who that is. Then, from amidst the chaos, Tor Vizsla stepped forward. His jetpack cracked as he landed, yanking off his helmet to reveal a rugged, scarred face twisted into a smirk. I've heard your stories, armored man, Tor called out, his voice booming across the battlefield. But this isn't your fight. That old relic over there's about to die by my hand. He motioned toward Jaster, then looked back at Jinwoo with a grin full of arrogance. Join me. Stand with Death Watch. We have the vision. With you, the Republic wouldn't stand a chaw. A screech tore through the battlefield, followed by a chorus of clanks. Bright golden lances of death rained down from above. Sentinel beams sliced through the air like divine judgment. Dozens of Death Watch and cordon soldiers disintegrated where they stood, cut down without ceremony, without warning. Tor Vizsla spun in horror. Cowards! You ambush us with machinery. Jinwoo slowly raised his head, eye visible beneath his exoframe's mask. For a leader, he said with complete calm, you talk too much. Tor's fury peaked. He ignited the darksaber, its black blade humming with fury. Enough. I challenge you, one-on-one. No tricks. No tech. Just you, and me. Jinwoo chuckled softly, unheard beneath his helmet. My armor is the only thing keeping this galaxy intact, he thought with amusement. If I took it off, you'd be fucked 100 times over. Suddenly, a hand grabbed Jinwoo's armored shoulder. Jaster Mariel. He stepped in front of Jinwoo, gaze sharp with firm conviction. Django told me briefly about your story, about what you did on the Invincible. But this, he gestured toward Tor with a nod, this is my fight. My honor. Some of the surviving Death Watch, those not killed by your droids, are out there. Watching. If I win with your tech, it'll be damn near impossible to convince the rest of Mandalore that this was won with honor. Jinwoo's voice turned sharp, low. Fuck off, he said flatly. You're in my way. Jaster blinked, surprised, but before he could respond, another hand rested gently on his shoulder. Django. The younger Fett stepped forward beside his mentor, not with aggression but caution. Armored man, be careful. Tor Vizsla isn't just a brute. He'll use every dirty trick in the book to win. He always has. Jinwoo tilted his head just slightly, eye narrowing beneath the shifting shadows of his helmet. Tor Vizsla should be the one worried, he said coolly. Without my armor, there goes his chances of winning. Jinwoo stepped forward once more, unbothered by the tense stares of Death Watch remnants still hiding in the cliffs above. His voice carried with deliberate venom. Leaders who talk too much. Yeah, I mean you, Tor Vizsla. Tor's expression tightened, lips curling in fury, but he held his tongue. Barely. Jinwoo gave a casual shrug. Tell me, do you have a son? Someone named Pre Vizsla, maybe. The Mandalorian clenched his fists. Coward. You threaten my family now. Are you holding my son hostage? Jinwoo blinked slowly. Nah. Just guessing. Hard to keep up with canon when half of it is fanfiction and the other half is Disney's Retcon nightmare. Tor barely processed the words, he was too busy glaring with bloodthirst. Then Jinwoo took a deep breath, and his exo frame began to retract. Tor Vizsla sneered as Jinwoo's armor began to peel away. When I kill you, armored man, your armor will become the new symbol of the Death Wa. He didn't finish. Because then he saw it. The armor collapsed inward like falling metal petals, vanishing into nothingness. And what stood in its place was not a man, not anymore. The light around him seemed to bend. The air grew heavy, as if the atmosphere itself recoiled. What emerged from the shell of the exo frame was a towering being cloaked in a living shadow. A figure wreathed in flame-like violet hair, eyes glowing with hellish fire, two massive curved black horns jutting from his head. Ashborn form. He was 5 times the size of Tor Vizsla, his black armor like scales forged from death itself. A long, tattered shadow cloak flowed behind him like smoke from a funeral pyre. His colossal black blade was unlike any weapon Vizsla had ever seen. And behind him, stomping forward from the swirling dark, his steed. A dark warhorse, its hooves leaving trails of flame across the cracked ground. Jinwoo's voice rumbled like distant thunder. That was your mistake, chatty little leader. His eyes locked with Tor Vizsla's. My armor wasn't protecting me from you. He stepped forward once more. It was protecting you from me. Tor Vizsla began to shake. Not just a little. His body trembled violently, his grip on the darksaber faltering as his legs instinctively backed away. What kind of beast? What kind of horrifying galaxy are you from? Jinwoo's face twisted into a calm smile. Does a prey have the right to ask questions of the predator? Then he looked, just for a moment, toward Jaster and Django. Even they, warriors born and bred, couldn't hide their reaction. Their jaws clenched, their eyes wide. Django unconsciously placed a hand over his chest, feeling his heart beating very hard. Jinwoo smirked. However, he said, I'm in a good mood today. If you manage to survive my blade 3 times, I'll spare you. Tor Vizsla's breath hitched. Does a monster even keep his word? Shhhhhhrrrrraak. A black slash tore through the air the moment he finished speaking. Not at Vizsla, but to his side. Ashbourne's blade cleaved the distant mountains, carving through stone, trees, and earth like a dark guillotine. The shockwave alone turned the landscape into a crater. Entire hills fell. Valleys split open. A new scar carved into Corda 6, an unnatural rift of destruction now visible from orbit. Jinwoo exhaled, a faint trail of dark mist escaping his mouth. What do you say, Tor Vizsla? He rumbled. Shall I hunt you like a dog? He took a slow step forward. Or fight me, like a man? Tor Vizsla's knees nearly buckled. But then he clenched his jaw, forced himself to breathe, and raised the darksaber again. If I die, he rasped, will you spare my men? Jinwoo's purple eyes narrowed. That, he said, depends entirely on your performance, Tor. Tor Vizsla's breathing was ragged, but his voice rang clear as he activated his holocommunicator, projecting a shaky blue light into the dust-choked air. Remaining Death Watch, on me. Now. You've seen it. This monster, this thing, can kill us with a swing of his sword. One by one, 20 Death Watch elite emerged from the shadows and ruins across the shattered cliffs of Corda 6, their jetpacks lighting up in streaks as they descended swiftly, boots crunching into the ruined earth behind Tor. Yes, Master Tor, one of them said, their voice heavy with conflicted loyalty and fear. Tor Vizsla stood straighter, turning to face them all. If I fail, if I fall today, tell my son, Pre Vizsla, that his father died honorably, defending the Death Watch from a walking calamity. He cast a brief glance toward Jinwoo, still standing like an executioner awaiting the nod. Tor continued, and you follow this monster's command until the day we can bolster our strength again. Do you hear me? But Master Tor, one Death Watch soldier stepped forward, his voice laced with desperation. We can fight him together. If we strike at once, we can overwhelm. Fool, Tor snapped, his anger voice of command. Did you not see it? One swing of his blade changed the landscape. A new valley opened just from the air he cut. He is not a warrior. He is not a man. He is monster. The soldiers stunned. Silence hung for a moment. Tor's voice dropped. Honor me, by surviving. And remember, when I die, do as he says. Death Watch will survive. We will return. Without hesitation, each of the 20 Death Watch soldiers removed their helmets. They knelt in unison, placing their fists to their chests. Long live the Death Watch. Long live the Death Watch, they said in solemn unity, the chant echoing like a dirge across the broken battlefield. From the sideline, Django Fett watched it all unfold, eyes tight behind his helmet. Jaster, he muttered quietly, they're the bad guys, so why do I feel sympathy for them? Jaster Mariel kept his arms crossed, his own gaze locked onto the towering form of Ashbourne Jinwoo. Because behind that armor, Jaster said lowly, isn't a man. He narrowed his eyes. It's a monster. Jinwoo stood amidst the cracked earth, his voice cold and resolute. Your goodbyes are usually for good people, he said calmly, gaze never wavering. But I suppose when death comes knocking, people show their true colors. Tor Vizsla raised his head, breathing heavily. I'll assure you this, armored man, monster, whatever you are, I'll come back from this. And I'll come back as the winner. Then, in one fluid motion, he launched into the air with a burst of fire from his jetpack, unleashing a wall of flame as cover. In the midst of the smoke, a wrist rocket fired, aimed squarely at Jinwoo's chest. The explosion struck, but it did nothing. Jinwoo hadn't even flinched. The smoke cleared, and there he stood, unimpressed. Then, without moving a single step, Jinwoo lifted one clawed hand. Shadows curled like tendrils from his fingers as the gravitational pull of his ruler's authority activated. Tor didn't even have time to react. He was yanked mid-air, spiraling downward as if gravity had multiplied by tenfold. He hit the ground with a thunderous crash, a crater blooming beneath him. The impact echoed loudly through the valley. Dust and debris slowly settled around the motionless body of Tor Vizsla, coughing and wheezing. His chest heaved, and he winced. Several ribs were definitely broken. Jinwoo stepped to the edge of the crater, peering down like a god judging a mortal. That was one, he said flatly. Just a warm-up. He tilted his head slightly, expression unreadable. You've got 2 more. 3 comments 0 vote. Mandalorian Civil War 3. My name is Ashbourne. Satisfied. Tor Vizsla groaned from the crater, his body twitching as pain surged through his broken ribs. But still, he moved. Gritting his teeth, he activated his flamethrower in a sweeping arc, fire curling around his body in a wide radius, masking his next movement. The ground beneath him cracked and erupted as a barrage of wrist rockets launched downward, blasting a hole into the dirt. In a desperate gamble, he dove in, burrowing through the crater with a mix of jetpack thrust and sheer stubborn will. From behind Jinwoo, the dirt exploded. A shadow lunged from the makeshift tunnel, Tor Vizsla, rising with a scream of effort, hoping to bait the second strike. He wanted Jinwoo to waste it. To commit too early. But he forgot one thing. Jinwoo didn't move. His steed did. The dark warhorse snorted once, its flaming hooves cracking against the ground, then with a single monstrous kick, it struck Tor Vizsla square in the chest mid-air. The sound of bone snapping echoed like a gunshot. Vizsla's body was hurled like a ragdoll, spinning through the air before crashing into the dirt 5 meters away, smoke rising from his armor. A low groan escaped him. Shit, my arms, broken. The Death Watch soldiers, hardened warriors all, stood paralyzed. Their leader was being torn apart, and they could do nothing. Some looked like they were about to cry. Jinwoo turned to them, his voice cold and disgusted. You fascist fanatics, are you just going to stand there and watch your leader die? Heal him. Without hesitation, the Death Watch scrambled into motion. Kneeling beside Vizsla, they began unpacking every medkit they had, injecting stims, applying sealant foam, anything to patch him back together. Tor coughed blood, barely keeping his eyes open. Jinwoo stood there, arms folded behind his back like an executioner awaiting the final round. Get him on his feet, he said. 1 more to go. As the Death Watch scrambled to lift their broken leader, Jinwoo raised a hand and desummoned his steed. The flaming horse dissolved into black mist, its presence vanishing like smoke in the wind. Final round, Jinwoo said, voice heavy with amusement. I'll let you come close to me. Tor Vizsla, still shaking, flexed what was left of his working limbs. He checked his vision and winced. His right eye was blind, completely ruined from internal hemorrhage. His body was barely holding together, but he stood. Not from strength. From spite. One of his men stepped forward, trembling. Use this, sir. We'll carry you. Anything to help you escape from that thing. Tor raised his left arm, what little strength he had left curling into a fist. Don't you dare, he muttered. This is my fight. My ending. With his broken arm barely able to lift the darksaber, he began walking, limping, toward Jinwoo. Step by agonizing step, he closed the distance. 10 meters. 5 meters. 1 meter. Now face to face with death, Tor Vizsla stood barely tall enough to reach Jinwoo's chest in his Ashbourne form. Breathing raggedly, Tor let out a raspy laugh. Monster, he wheezed. Say your name. I want to remember it when I win. The name of the bastard who pushed me this far. Jinwoo blinked once. Fucking crazy, he thought. You're about to die and you're still throwing slang like you've already won. He sighed. As for your courage, Jinwoo said, lifting his gaze just slightly, I'll give you that much. His voice dropped lower. My name is Ashbourne. The one who rules the dead. Satisfied. Tor grinned through bloodied teeth. Yeah, satisfied. Jinwoo exhaled slowly, his grip tightening around his massive black blade. One last swing. He stepped forward and slashed. Tor Vizsla moved with every ounce of his remaining strength, arms trembling as he raised the darksaber to block. He wasn't aiming to overpower the monster. He only needed one thing. Just change the trajectory, just one moment, just. A sound that should have been impossible. The black blade of the Darksaber, ancient, forged by the first Mandalorian Jedi, shattered on impact. A cascade of fractured light and sparking energy burst into the air. Tor's eyes widened as he felt it. The realization. His torso separated from his legs, blood bursting beneath the split, as his upper half collapsed onto the dirt, rolling slightly. Jinwoo stood tall, his sword humming with residual darkness, his expression unreadable. You were right, Jinwoo said at last, walking up to what remained of him. You could change the trajectory. Just enough. With the right reinforcement, something like my exo-frame. He glanced toward the trembling Death Watch soldiers in the distance. But I was wrong about one thing. You're an egotistical, fascist bastard, but you still cared for your men. That's what saved them. Tor Vizsla's mouth curled upward faintly, just enough for a grin. Then his eyes slowly shut. And he died with a smile. The battlefield was silent, save for the low hum of broken gear and the heavy breathing of survivors. The Death Watch stood frozen in the aftermath of Tor Vizsla's death, gazes fixed on the towering figure who had felled their leader with a single, final stroke. Then one voice broke the silence. Long live the new leader of Mandalore. Another joined in. Long live the new leader of Mandalore. Voices echoed across the ravaged field, until it became a unified chant, repeated with growing fervor, until all remaining Death Watch were shouting in unison, eyes locked on Jinwoo. But Jinwoo simply raised a hand. Enough. The chants died immediately. For now, Jinwoo said, his tone steady, you'll work under Jaster Mariel. Confusion swept through the ranks. Some exchanged glances, others furrowed their brows. One of them stepped forward. But, you defeated our Mandalore. By our code, that makes you. I know what your code says, Jinwoo interrupted. His gaze swept over them, glowing faintly beneath his helm. But let me ask you something. He took a step forward. You still want to beat me, don't you? Silence. Then, slowly, a few heads nodded. Then take refuge under someone you can trust, Jinwoo said. A man like Jaster. Someone who won't exploit your weakness. You selfish fascists followed a man who at least died with conviction, but your path forward will require more than ego and blood. The Death Watch lowered their heads in unison. Yes, new leader, they murmured. Jaster stepped forward, still processing the weight of what had just happened. What should I call you now? He asked carefully. Armored Man, or Ashborn. Jinwoo let out a low exhale and, with a flick of his hand, his black exo-frame reformed around him, encasing his monstrous form in steel once more. Armored Man, he said flatly. Unless you want the title the one who ruled the dead following me around on every Republic channel. We already have enough problems with Joever Bidini causing galactic hysteria with his Bidini blast. Jaster blinked, then chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. You're right about that. Jinwoo stepped forward through the settling dust, his eyes drawn to the shattered remnants of the legendary Darksaber, the once feared black blade now nothing more than a broken hilt and cracked kyber core. He bent down slowly, picking it up with one hand, inspecting the ruined weapon with mild curiosity. Then, without a word, he turned toward the Death Watch remnants and tossed it toward one of the surviving members. The hilt clattered at the soldier's feet. A moment later, Jinwoo reached into his storage and pulled out a glowing, blood-red kyber crystal, its aura pulsing faintly with raw, unstable power. He threw that next. Igniting his own Vectibus lightsaber, a long, obsidian black blade that roared to life with a deep, chilling hum, Jinwoo spoke with the weight of command behind every word. Give that broken hilt and this red kyber crystal to his son, Pre Vizsla. The Death Watch stood frozen, listening intently. When the boy is worthy, Jinwoo continued, I'll allow him to challenge me for the right to claim my black kyber crystal. If he wants it, he'll have to take it from me himself. One of the Death Watch stepped forward and bowed, clutching the broken hilt tightly to his chest. Yes, new leader. We will remind him of this loss. One day, he will defeat you. Jinwoo gave a rare smile, just faint enough to be unsettling. I look forward to it. He turned his gaze back to the group, the air around him still dense with his terrifying presence. But for now, he said firmly, as the defeated, you will support Satine Kryze's leadership. Publicly. Silently. Even if you despise her ideals, you'll back her until the day you gather enough strength to invoke the right to challenge me again. He let that settle before finishing. This penalty applies for the next 20 years. Understand? The Death Watch all dropped to one knee, raising fists across their chests in salute. Yes, new leader. Inside the Mandalorian carrier, the air was thick with the heavy silence of survival. The engines hummed low, a calming drone compared to the chaos that had unfolded earlier. Jinwoo stood near the observation deck, arms folded, his dark armor gleaming under the faint lights. Behind him sat the remnants of Death Watch, quietly seated, their loyalty sealed in blood and fear. Jaster Mariel leaned back on a bench beside Django, both of them battle-worn, their armor burned of the previous battle but their spirits oddly stable. What a crazy day, Jaster muttered, exhaling deeply. I lost most of my men, one of them betrayed me, and I rule as a substitute leader, and somehow, I'm still alive. But tell me, what is your goal, armored man? Jinwoo didn't turn to face him. His voice was neutral. Business. I want 20% of all Beskar metal from Mandalore's mining operations. Django let out a short breath of amusement. Go ahead and take it. I've seen what you can cut, but the melting process. That's the difficult part. Beskar doesn't yield easily. Jinwoo's helmet shifted slightly as if amused. Don't worry about that. I've got plenty of cards up my sleeve. He then turned around fully, addressing the Death Watch in a low, commanding tone. Death Watch, he said, voice clear and cold, if someone, anyone, asks who the armored man really is, or suspects anything more. He raised a finger slightly. You may describe my true appearance. But my name, and my title, are secrets. He gave a small smirk beneath his mask. Mystery is fun. And a little chaos makes the galaxy more interesting. The Death Watch soldiers, even the wounded among them, nodded without hesitation. Yes, new leader. Django Fett removed his helmet, his face hardened by battle yet humbled by respect. He looked directly at Jinwoo, or rather, the Ashborn standing silently like a living myth. Ashborn, Django said solemnly, I'm indebted to you. You saved the true Mandalore, my mentor, and what remains of the true Mandalorians. I will be forever in your debt. Jaster chuckled, the tension broken just a bit by his worn voice. Even if you're indebted, Django, all you'll probably end up doing is scrubbing that dark horse of his. Jinwoo didn't laugh, but the smirk was evident under his helmet. No need for that, he said. This is what I wanted anyway. He stepped closer. Django, if you ever return to bounty hunting, which you will, because life changes people, I want you to send me the details of every contract you get. Especially the important ones. He paused. There may come a day, when Count Dooku stops being the Jedi everyone admire. When he becomes something darker, Darth Tyrannus. If that day comes, I won't ask you to assassinate him. But I will need you to help set the board. Django furrowed his brow. I don't think I'll become a bounty hunter that soon, but you're right. Life can turn people. As for Dooku, I've only heard good things. Are you really saying he'll fall that far? Jinwoo's voice dropped with quiet amusement. 20 years from now, if I'm right, I'll laugh and welcome you as my personal bounty hunter. Django's lip tugged into a grin. But if I'm right, if Dooku stays true, you'll teach me that ability of yours. The one that makes you the one who rule the dead. Jinwoo said nothing for a moment. Then his helmet retracted partially, revealing only his mouth. Without hesitation, he spat onto his palm. Django did the same. They clasped hands, a gentleman's pact sealed not with politics or ceremony, but with blood, spit, and honor. 1 comments 0 vote. Mandalorian Civil War 4. Count Dooku. Django turned to Jaster, wiping his palm on his armor. Some of my men are stationed on Galadron, he said. Sent to handle a protest. Keep them in check. Just then, one of the Death Watch soldiers stepped forward, about to speak, until Jinwoo raised a hand to stop him. Yes, I know, Jinwoo said, voice even. A certain Jedi Master named Count Dooku received false intel from your late boss Tor Vizsla. He thinks it was the true Mandalorians who tried to assassinate Satine Kryze, not Death Watch. Django and Jaster turned toward him, eyes narrowed. Neither said a word. Why are you both looking at me like I'm a Jedi? Jinwoo muttered. Jaster shook his head and smirked. There goes your chance, Django. A gentleman's bet, lost before it even began. Django scoffed. No way. Jedi are goody two-shoes. My card's still on the table. Jinwoo folded his arms. Then I'll deal with Dooku. I've always wanted to duel him anyway. Jaster raised a brow. And you think he'll listen? Before Jinwoo could answer, Django cut in. You might not realize this, Jaster, but the armored man is pretty damn popular in the Republic. Without him, most of the Jedi would be rotting in some Plagueridon tomb thanks to that Rakghoul outbreak. Jinwoo smirked under his helmet. If not for me, half of them would be in frozen coffin, and I'd be posting memes of their recovery photos across the holonet. Memes. Django blinked. Jinwoo waved it off. Just a joke. That's all. As the Mandalorian carrier hissed open on the icy plains of Galadron, Miles and a squad of Mandalorian supercommandos stood on alert, weapons ready. The chill in the air didn't match the tension rising in their stance, until they recognized the figures stepping out. Miles blinked. Jango. You're here, and your mentor's still alive. Jango gave a casual nod. Good to see you, Miles. But Miles' eyes shifted immediately past them, and froze. Trailing behind Jango and Jaster was a small unit of armored figures. Death Watch. Miles' entire stance shifted in an instant, his hand flying to his sidearm. Death Watch. Are they holding you hostage? Jaster stepped forward calmly. On the contrary, he said, voice firm. They're under my banner now. Miles furrowed his brow, disbelief written all over his face, until something else caught his eye. A tall, imposing figure stepped down from the ramp behind them. The exo-frame. The helmet. The weight of his presence. Miles gasped. Is that him? He turned, yelling over his shoulder. Quick! Give me paper and a stylus. Now! One of the supercommandos stumbled around frantically, handing over a notepad and a flimsy stylus. Miles sprinted forward like a kid at a Hollistar premiere. Please, he said, practically out of breath. Can you sign this? Just one signature, please, armored man. Jinwoo paused mid-step. He tilted his head slowly, then let out a dry, amused breath. Am I a celebrity now? He muttered. Jango snorted behind him. Told you were popular. Jinwoo glanced back dryly, then looked down at Miles. Without a word, he took the notepad, and split it into 4 clean pieces. Get lost, Jinwoo said flatly. Miles stared at the torn pieces in his hands as if they were pure gold. Thank you, armored man. He grinned like a lunatic. This is exciting, nice paychecks and now I've got an idol. Jinwoo muttered, I think there won't be any paychecks after today. As the group continued moving, the local governor of Galadron emerged, flanked by 2 guards in ceremonial armor. He bowed slightly. Welcome, Jango Fett. And, armored man, the governor said carefully. As you can see, the protest situation. Where's Dooku? Jinwoo cut him off without looking at the crowd. The governor blinked. I assure you, there are no Jedi present. Jinwoo exhaled with mild irritation, voice sharpening. I'm pressed for time. Where is Dooku? If he's not here yet, where is he planning to land with his battalion of goody two-shoes knights? The governor faltered, clearly intimidated by the gaze beneath that helmet. I give up. He'll land in the snow plains, far side of the planet, in the White Valley Basin. It's remote. Jango stepped beside Jinwoo, placing a hand on his hip. Armored, I'm coming with you. Jinwoo gave him a glance. Consider it curiosity, Jango added with a half smirk. I wanna see this Dooku guy in person. The wind howled across the snow-swept plains of Galadron, flurries dancing around the landing struts of Mandalorian ships. Jinwoo stood motionless, his dark silhouette stark against the white, with Jango at his side. Through the comms, Jango's voice crackled. Jaster, if things go south, you take off. Land only when I signal. Jaster's voice came back with a huff. Don't die, Jango. And as for the armored man, a pause, then dry sarcasm, pray he doesn't turn this planet's landscape into a new map. Jinwoo remained silent. Moments later, the sharp hum of repulsor lifts announced the arrival of a Republic transport. The Jedi shuttle descended from the clouds, white against white, until it touched down with practiced precision. Its ramp lowered, steam hissing into the frozen air. Count Dooku emerged first, his regal cloak billowing, followed by several Jedi Knights behind him, stoic, cautious, already tense. Dooku's eyes swept the scene before resting on Jinwoo. He frowned. I never expected the armored man to be present in a plot to assassinate Satine Kryze, Dooku said, voice calm but edged. Or, perhaps there's something I've missed. He took a few steps forward. Master Tyvoka and Plo Koon spoke highly of you. Quite highly, in fact. He folded his arms behind his back, eyes narrowing. So tell me, why are you standing among Mandalorians accused of treachery? Jinwoo remained still as the flurry of movement unfolded behind him. The ramp of the Mandalorian transport hissed, and a dozen Death Watch members stepped out in formation, weapons lowered, not in surrender, but as a declaration. One stepped forward, voice unwavering. It was our group, he said loud and clear. We planted the false information. It was Tor Vizsla, our former leader, who orchestrated the lie. The one who caused the chaos. The armored man is not to blame. In fact, he's the one who ended Tor Vizsla. He's the one who made us take responsibility. If you want to punish someone for the chaos on Mandalore, punish us. Jinwoo's head turned slightly. Damn, he muttered, tone unreadable. Never thought I'd hear that from you lot. What about Pre-Vizsla? Another Death Watch soldier stepped up. Jasters watching over him. We're keeping him away from the bloodshed. Like you instructed. Dooku's expression shifted slightly. Not to surprise, but perhaps mild curiosity. He offered a slow nod and turned his eyes toward Jinwoo once again. Then it's concluded. A rare display of accountability, impressive, he said. It seems I've won my wager with Master Windu. If he were here, I'd be bragging endlessly about how speaking first solves more problems than saber swinging. Civilized, as it should be. Behind Dooku, the Jedi Knights, previously tense, hands twitching near lightsabers, lowered their stances slightly, a visible sigh of relief spreading through the line. But Dooku wasn't finished. He took one more step forward, eyes narrowing again. However, he said slowly, I would like to speak to you, armored man. He paused. If possible, would you be willing to show your face? A wave of tension surged through the Death Watch soldiers. Even Jango, standing just behind Jinwoo, exhaled slowly. Several of the younger Death Watch gulped audibly, remembering what happened the last time someone asked him to remove his helmet. Jinwoo didn't move. The wind howled gently across the snowy plains of Galadron, brushing against his exo-frame as he stood like an immovable statue. No, he said simply. I don't think I will. Dooku's brow furrowed, the air around him growing colder with tension. A shame, he said with a breath, his voice dipping into something heavier. However, I must insist. The Republic needs strength like yours. For the greater good. And if you won't join willingly. He took another slow, deliberate step forward. Then I may need to drag you in myself. Jango let out a tired sigh from behind Jinwoo, shaking his head. There goes my bet, he muttered. Just like you told me, everyone changes eventually. Jinwoo didn't look back. See you in 20 years, Jango. I expect you to become a valuable asset by then. Dooku's gaze shifted between the two of them. A wager? He asked, voice calm but curious. That's a wager I don't recall hearing. Jango crossed his arms, eyes cold. Yeah, I didn't want to tell you. I don't like you. And thanks to you, I just lost my bet. Dooku's expression remained composed, though a flicker of something darker passed through his eyes. I see. So that's how it is. Jinwoo finally tilted his head. We're shifting topics, he said flatly. But for what reason? Dooku clasped his hands behind his back. Master Taivoka was supposed to die. He took a direct hit to his organs, vital ones. Even Bacta wouldn't have been enough. But he lived, because of you. You regenerated them, didn't you? Jinwoo gave a small nod. Uh-huh. Jango blinked, stunned. Wait, you can regenerate lost organs. Without a word, Jinwoo detached a small section of his armor. The piece shimmered slightly as it extended and shifted, growing, reshaping itself into the form of a human heart, then a lung, then reverting back. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, alive and precise. Dooku's eyes narrowed with fascination. Then this armor, it's not just equipment. It's artificial, but it behaves like a living organism. That makes it priceless, especially for the Republic. He stepped forward. You see, we're no longer just peacekeepers. That ideal was removed the moment Joe Everbidini emerged. Now we are guardians, true guardians, constantly outmaneuvering chaos. Any anomaly, any edge, we must use it. That's my principle. Jinwoo raised a brow behind the mask. So, in short, you want to be more flexible. Less robes, more armor. That it? Dooku smirked faintly. Precisely. That's my vision. Jinwoo exhaled, then stepped forward. Are you even aware that most of the Republic's problems come from the fact that democracy's bloated with dead weight, people with no vision, no spine? Let's say I give you the formula for my armor. What do you think they'll do with it? He tilted his head. No, I don't even need to explain what'll happen, do I? Dooku's face remained calm, but his voice tightened. I'm aware. But once the Jedi see its potential, how it could save lives, reduce our casualties, it won't matter. They'll demand it. Jinwoo's tone sharpened. And then it gets leaked. Mass-produced. Spread to every corner of the Republic. He gave a cold chuckle. Exactly what I don't want. So no. Fuck off. Dooku's eyes narrowed. With a snap hiss, his blue lightsaber ignited. The blade cast a glow across the snow, humming with power. Then we're at a crossroads, he said. I propose the Mandalorian way, trial by combat. One of us yields. The winner decides the terms. Jinwoo gave a short nod. I agree. But most of our personnel have returned to their ships, so let's do this the old-fashioned way. Alone. No audience. No witnesses. Dooku turned to his Jedi Knights and lowered his voice. Return to the ship. If I'm not back in an hour, contact Master Yoda. The Jedi nodded reluctantly, then disappeared across the snowy plains, their boots vanishing into the icy mist. From a distance, Jango Fett and Death Watches gave Jinwoo a last look, then returned to the Mandalorian transport without a word. Dooku turned back, lifting his saber into a proper stance. Now that they're gone, shall we begin? Without a word, Jinwoo raised his hand, his Vectivus lightsaber igniting in a harsh black saber. Dooku's eyes narrowed. Is that the Darksaber? No, the hilt's different. His tone dropped. Who are you, armored man? 0 comments 0 vote. Mandalorian Civil War 5. Jinwoo vs. Dooku. Jinwoo stepped forward, his voice low and confident. The one who should be asking questions, is me. He leveled his blade. Tell me, Count Dooku, will your battle style change in 20 years? Dooku didn't answer. He moved first. Form 2. Makashi. Elegant. Efficient. Deadly. Dooku lunged forward with pristine footwork, his blue lightsaber slicing through the air in a tight arc aimed at Jinwoo's collarbone. His blade moved with the refined grace of a fencer, every motion precise, every angle sharp. But Jinwoo didn't even flinch. He stepped into the strike, meeting it mid-motion with a flawless block. Form 3. Sorazu. The defensive style unfolded through his movements, tight parries, circular motions, redirecting the force behind each Makashi thrust with smooth efficiency. He absorbed Dooku's speed and returned calm. Another sequence. Dooku spun in and delivered a fintinta lunge, typical of Makashi. Jinwoo shifted again. Form V. Sheen. His counterattack came from a reverse grip, deflecting Dooku's slash and twisting into a backhanded slice meant to test the Count's defense. Dooku ducked and disengaged with a fluid backstep, cloak flowing like a shadow in the snow. Their sabers clashed once again, clank, black and blue lighting up the pale plains of Galadron. Dooku pressed harder now, launching a flurry of rapid Makashi attacks, tight jabs, angled thrusts, and sudden pivots to catch Jinwoo off guard. Jinwoo let him push. Form IV. Ataru. With sudden agility, Jinwoo flipped backward, letting the momentum lift him above a low swing before planting his feet into the snow, shifting back into a grounded stance. Dooku's eyes twitched in confusion. He was adapting, no, mastering, every style he touched. Dooku narrowed his gaze. Who trained you, armored man? He asked, panting only slightly. Was it the Mandalorians? Jinwoo didn't respond immediately. He stepped forward again, this time slower, blade poised to strike, his technique now shifting, smoother, more deceptive. Form V. Neiman. The balance. The fusion of all forms. Jinwoo's saber moved in ways Dooku couldn't predict, each strike drawing from something else. A Makashi thrust here. A Gemso overhead slam. A Sorazu block spun into a Juyo-style twist. He parried Dooku's next attack and whispered under his breath. If Mandalore were trained like this, he said coldly, they wouldn't have this problem in the first place. Dooku's brows furrowed. He stepped back now, instinctively. He's not following any style, he realized. He's using all of them, and evolving them. Note. Jinwoo adds a small portion of his Shadow Monarch strength, which is why he is equal to Dooku, even though his level is lower in the Jedi ranking system. Jinwoo pointed his blade forward, his stance wide and commanding. Round 2, count. Dooku tightened his grip on the lightsaber, cloak billowing with the wind. Gladly. Jinwoo smiled silently, his blade humming low and steady. Dooku narrowed his eyes, grip firm on his saber. Why are you smiling? Jinwoo didn't answer. He simply tilted his chin upward, and pointed. Behind Dooku. The Count's instinct screamed, he spun around just in time to see a shadowy figure lunging toward him from the rear. A flicker of energy, humanoid but warped, cloaked in darkness. A force phantom conjured from Jinwoo's will. Dooku reacted instantly, thrusting out his hand with a focused force push. The phantom staggered, only for Jinwoo's own hand to rise, and a burst of black force lightning lanced from Jinwoo's palm, striking Dooku's saber hilt midspin as it returned to his grip. The jolt didn't aim to injure, it disarmed, precise and surgical. The lightsaber flew from Dooku's hand and clattered across the snow, skidding to a stop several meters away. The Force Phantom took its opportunity. In an instant, it reformed, lunging again, this time pinning Dooku to the ground. Jinwoo took slow, deliberate steps forward. Then snapped his fingers. The phantom evaporated, fading into curling tendrils of shadow. Dooku gasped slightly, on his back in the snow, weaponless, coat torn, his heart pounding. Jinwoo looked down at him calmly. It's my win, Count, he said flatly. Dooku looked up at him, face twisted with both frustration and disbelief. Are you a Sith? He muttered. That lightning, it wasn't blue. It was black. No record in the Jedi archives ever documented such power. Jinwoo tilted his head, voice calm as ever. I had a capable master, he said. Dooku, still seated in the snow, his breath visible in the cold air, stared up at him with narrowed eyes. Elaborate, he said, voice tight. The Sith are evil. That's the truth in the archives. The dark side leads only to pain. To suffering. Jinwoo let out a quiet, almost amused breath. Not if you're a businessman. Dooku blinked. What? Jinwoo folded his arms, standing over him like a black statue of judgment. There's one Sith. Only one. In this entire galaxy, who actually had brains. Lived with the dark side. Didn't chase immortality or planetary domination. No galactic conquest. He just used the Force. Profited. Built. And believe it or not, he died peacefully. Surrounded by his family. Bullshit, Dooku said immediately, the word cutting through the cold. If there was a Sith like that, it would have been in the archives. It would have been a warning. A case study. Jinwoo's voice didn't waver. You're assuming the Jedi record everything they find. You ever wonder what happens to information that doesn't fit the narrative? Some of your archives, Jinwoo continued, were purged. Modified. Forgotten. Or maybe they were too scared to admit it. That Sith from the Old Republic weren't always mad dogs, but monsters beyond comprehension. Some of them could devour planets. Like Vitiate. Or Nihilus. Sith who weren't just wielders of the dark side, they were black holes in the Force. That's why the old stories had to be erased. Why the Republic wanted them forgotten. He tilted his head slightly, mocking. Because if the people remembered what real Sith were capable of, the Republic wouldn't sleep so well at night. Dooku went silent. Truly silent. His lips parted, but no answer came. Then, at last, he said quietly, why do I have a feeling you know more about us than we know about you? Jinwoo's smile widened beneath the mask. Because I do. This master of yours, Dooku finally asked, voice quiet but edged with incredulity. What was his name? What did he do? Jinwoo raised a hand casually, then snapped his fingers. A ripple echoed through the Force like thunder muffled beneath the snow. From the air around them, the shadows thickened, and suddenly, one by one, phantom figures began to appear. Not one, not 10, but 100. All of them, Force phantoms. Silent, eyeless, ethereal soldiers standing in formation like a battalion waiting for orders. Their mere presence twisted the atmosphere into something oppressive, unreal. Jinwoo spoke calmly. His name was Darth Vectivus. He was a businessman. Dooku's jaw slowly dropped. What? Jinwoo gestured toward the phantoms. He used those to mine rocks. Focused on profit. Investments. Safe markets. And, believe it or not, he didn't conquer. Didn't kill billions. Didn't throw lightning at politicians. The Count blinked. Those are armies. Armies. And he used them too, to mine rocks. Rocks with value, Jinwoo corrected with a nod. Mine needed profit anyway. Dooku just stared at the sea of Force phantoms. And, he lived peacefully. With power like that. Jinwoo tilted his head. Exactly why he's not in your archives. He didn't burn the galaxy. He didn't even shout. Just made money. Kept his family safe. Got old. Died rich. Probably with a wine glass in his hand. Dooku was visibly shaken now. So that's it, his apprentice, is a money lover too. Jinwoo gave a smug shrug. Stonks, baby. Gotta chase that revenue. Dooku stood in silence, tension still lingering on his breath. His hands, though no longer raised, remained at his sides in careful control. Whether you convinced me or not, Dooku finally muttered, the chill returning to his tone. It doesn't matter. I lost. So what do you want? Jinwoo didn't even blink. A curse, he said simply. Dooku raised an eyebrow. A curse. You will never speak of what I truly am, Jinwoo said. Not to the Jedi Council. Not to the Republic. Not even to yourself in meditation. Your memory and tongue will be sealed, tied to my design. The only thing you can say regarding this duel, is that you lost to me. Nothing more. Dooku's eyes narrowed. And if Master Yoda suspects something, he's no fool. Jinwoo's tone remained calm, almost amused. Then tell Master Yoda to come find me. 9 years from now. He'll be ready for me. And don't worry, he'll understand. Dooku took a breath. Then exhaled. Fine. Get this over with, armored man. Jinwoo raised one hand, and the shadow behind him surged upward. It coiled into a twisting form, a sculpture of pure blackness, taking the shape of a jagged humanoid figure with long, frozen limbs. It resembled the monarch of the ice folk, Scyllid, its mere presence cold enough to frost the edges of Dooku's beard. The shadow figure reached out. Dooku clenched his jaw but did not resist as the icy black hand pressed gently over his chest. A soft hum followed, then a sharp jolt of pressure through his bones and mind. Something sealing. Locking away a part of him. Jinwoo lowered his hand. It's done, he said, voice firm. Now, go. You've got a planet to protect. Or betray. Whichever. Dooku turned slowly, his cloak trailing across the snowy plains as he made his way toward the waiting Republic ship in the distance. Each step was deliberate. Heavy. The curse Jinwoo placed on him wasn't just a seal, it was a weight on his thoughts. But just as the ramp of the ship hissed open with hydraulic steam, Jinwoo's voice rang out from behind him. Dooku. The Count paused, glancing back. I can help you, Jinwoo said, his tone more measured now. With armor, within a Jedi. A way to protect your people while still wearing your ideals. Dooku blinked. There's a catch. There always is, Jinwoo replied calmly. Only one condition. He turned his back and began walking toward his Mandalorian carrier. But his voice carried through the wind. One person needs to be removed from the game. No matter the cost. Dooku narrowed his eyes. And who is that armored man? Jinwoo paused. Then looked over his shoulder just slightly, the snow brushing against his boots. You can't find him, he said simply. He's too good at hiding. But don't worry, you'll meet him. When you're desperate. Dooku stood there in the snow, thoughtful. Suspicious. But most of all, uncertain. He boarded the ship in silence. Meanwhile, Jinwoo ascended the ramp of the Mandalorian vessel, his footsteps steady. Palpatine, he mused, his eyes narrowing under the helmet. You're clever. Manipulative. Hidden behind layers of charm, corruption, and design. But no matter how sharp your game is, you're still beneath vitiate. A dark grin touched his lips beneath the mask as the ramp closed behind him. Inside the humming Mandalorian carrier en route to Mandalore, the atmosphere was tense but calm. The interior was dimly lit, humming with power, filled with warriors who only hours ago were bitter enemies, now forced to coexist under the shadow of a single man. Miles sat with his helmet in his lap, his gaze darting cautiously toward the cluster of Death Watch members sitting at the far end of the transport bay. His jaw tensed. I don't trust you, Miles muttered, voice edged with years of battlefield weariness. Death Watch has always been a ticking thermal detonator. But if the armored man says you're under Jaster. One of the Death Watch warriors, still bearing faint scarring from the duel and looking no less fierce, responded calmly. We only obey one leader now, the armored man. He told us to take refuge under Jaster Mariel, until the day we're strong enough to challenge him again. Miles frowned, blinking. That sounds like a threat. No, the Death Watch soldier replied. It's a vow. 1 comments 0 vote. Mandalorian Civil War 6, the meeting. Jinwoo, seated silently with arms folded, finally spoke. Jaster, he said, turning slightly toward the elder warrior, now that most of the Mandalorian Civil War has been cleaned up, will Satine Kryze be able to rule? I'm not here for politics. I just want my cut of Beskar. 20%. That was the deal. Jaster let out a sigh and pulled a small device from a pouch at his side, a simple but elegant holocommunicator. The casing bore the sigil of House Kryze. Under normal circumstances, we wouldn't know where she is, Jaster said. She went into hiding during the assassinations. But, she gave me this. He held up the communicator. She said, if Mandalore is ever truly settled, and you survive to see it, call me. I never expected to use it. I never expected, well. He gestured vaguely toward Jinwoo, his expression caught between admiration and mild horror. A crazy monster in armor who ended our civil war with a walking funeral pyre, Jaster finished. So yeah, I'll contact her. But, he added after a beat, we've still got a bigger problem. Jinwoo raised an eyebrow. The Republic. Jaster nodded gravely. They're not going to like Mandalore suddenly stabilizing on its own. Without Jedi assistance. Without Senate permission. With the Death Watch, of all people, sitting under my banner. Jinwoo leaned back slightly, voice turning dry. Those corrupted higher UPS always make things a headache. Can't win too cleanly without making someone sweat. As the Mandalorian carrier descended into Sundari, the great domed capital of Mandalore came into full view. The city was intact, its shield dome still gleaming under the sky, protective and proud. Despite the Civil War scars and recent chaos, it stood resilient. Majestic. With a mechanical hiss, the carrier's ramp dropped open. Jinwoo stepped out first, his long shadow stretching across the hangar floor, followed closely by Jaster, Django, Miles, and the newly subordinated Death Watch troops. The atmosphere outside was quieter than expected, no protests or unrest, only a cautious silence and lingering tension. Django stretched his arms and looked up at the dome above. Home sweet home, he muttered, a nostalgic grin on his face. Jaster stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes scanning the skyline. Still intact, he said. Just like last time. The dome held. Jinwoo's gaze shifted. His eyes narrowed as he saw something breaking the skyline, Republic ships. A Venator-class star destroyer, flanked by two smaller escort cruisers, floated silently above Sundari's perimeter, not in attack posture, but clearly keeping watch. A few Jedi transports could also be seen parked at one of the upper hangars. So, Jinwoo said, voice calm but dry, she's here. He didn't have to say the name. They all knew who he meant. Jaster gave a small grunt. Quote. Duchess Satine took refuge with the Republic after the assassination attempts. Stayed under their protection just a bit too long, if you ask me. Jinwoo folded his arms. Hiding under Jedi cloaks, huh? Jaster gave a shrug. Enemy of my enemy is my friend. As long as the Duchess is safe and the Jedi are keeping her alive, I don't mind. For now. As the Jedi transports began their descent from the Republic ship overhead, Jinwoo turned his head slightly. Did you already contact Satine? Let her know the situation's been handled. Jaster shook his head. Haven't yet. But if Dooku kept his word after losing to you, and with Death Watch's confession, I imagine she's already aware. If anything, it probably pushed her to stabilize Mandalore quicker. Jinwoo exhaled quietly. A pacifist leader who genuinely cares for her homeland, impressive. The hiss of landing gear cut through the air as the Jedi transport touched down, its ramp descending slowly. Out stepped Duchess Satine Kryze, her posture graceful but composed, flanked on either side by Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn. Jedi robes shifted softly in the breeze, their presence calm but alert. Jaster stepped forward and immediately knelt on one knee, his helmet tucked under one arm. The rest of the true Mandalorians behind him followed suit without hesitation, even a few of the Death Watch reluctantly mimicking the gesture. Welcome back, my Duchess, Jaster said solemnly. It's good to see you again. Satine's expression softened as she placed a hand over her chest. As always, thank you, Jaster, for believing in me. Even in the chaos. Her eyes shifted, falling on the towering figure in dark armor standing silently beside Jaster. Her breath hitched faintly. And I didn't expect the armored man would be here as well. Qui-Gon stepped forward slightly, arms crossed, a calm smile on his face. I heard a rumor, he said. That you defeated my former master using Mandalorian technique. I admit, I'd like to witness it myself one day. Jinwoo gave no reaction, but inwardly. Dooku, not bad. You're good at lying about my nature. At least now things won't get awkward. Jinwoo gave a faint nod in return, letting the moment settle, his presence already casting long, foreboding shadows beneath Mandalore's restored dome. But his eyes, behind the helmet, remained sharp. Focused. Watching. Not with his eyes. Not with his ears. But with something deeper, an instinct forged in the abyss, sharpened by death and command. A presence, hidden. Veiled not by simple stealth, but by refined mastery of the Force. A cloak not made of fabric, but of thought. Jinwoo's voice barely left his lips, a whisper carried through his internal channel. Offensive bias, if a Jedi cloaked themselves from perception, can you detect it? A pulse responded through his neural interface. Affirmative. I am aware someone is hiding here. Detection is easier than obscuring a flood infection. Probability of subject being Grandmaster Yoda, 100%. Jinwoo's gaze drifted, scanning the group until it settled on Qui-Gon Jinn. He tilted his head slightly, the gesture subtle yet sharp. You're good at smuggling people, Qui-Gon Jinn. Obi-Wan glanced at him with mild confusion. It's just the three of us. Myself, Master Qui-Gon, and the Duchess. Qui-Gon, serene as ever, offered a calm smile, but there was something in his eyes. A glint. A flicker. Confirmation. You noticed, then, he said. Jinwoo chuckled softly. Even if Master Yoda were 1,000 miles from here, I'd still detect him. Like a veil being ripped from every mind in the plaza, the illusion collapsed. A ripple of mental static washed over the area. The Mandalorians. The Jedi. Even Satine herself blinked, as if waking from a quiet dream. And there he was. Small. Ancient. Wise. Master Yoda stood in full view, his Geimer stick in hand, eyes narrowed with a knowing twinkle, now visible where there had once been nothing. Hehemachem, Yoda chuckled with that familiar tone. The armored man, better sense than any Jedi, he has. Jaster and Jango, both hardened Mandalorian warriors, instinctively gulped at the sight, and more importantly, the presence, of the legendary Grand Master of the Jedi Order. Even the Death Watch behind them straightened, unsure whether to salute or vanish into the floor. Satine, ever the diplomat, gave a respectful bow, her tone composed but warm. It is an honor, Grand Master Yoda, to have one as wise as you grace Mandalore with your presence. Yoda's eyes sparkled mischievously. He turned toward Obi-Wan and said with a teasing grin, a good woman, Satine is. Perhaps resigned from the Jedi, you should, be with her, you might. Master Yoda. Obi-Wan stammered, flushing as his eyes widened. Please, don't joke like that. My will belongs to the Jedi Order, though, he trailed off for a second. I do, have feelings for her. Jinwoo, arms crossed, couldn't help himself. Yeah, the Jedi Order is strict as fuck. Yoda turned slowly toward him, brow lifting, clearly amused. Dislike the Jedi Order, do you? He said dryly. To the point of swearing about it, Jinwoo gave a lazy shrug. Just calling it like I see it, old man. He grinned beneath the helmet. Besides, you were thinking it too. Yoda chuckled again, his ears twitching slightly. Perhaps, he murmured, tapping his cane lightly on the floor. But better to hear it aloud, it is. Then, with a turn of his head and that sagely calm in his voice, he addressed the Duchess. Duchess Satine, proceed you may. Attend your meeting, stabilize your pacifist rule. Flourish, I hope peace will, through this planet, through Mandalore. Satine gave a respectful bow. It's an honor, Master Yoda. Thank you. But Yoda's gaze shifted back to the one towering figure whose aura weighed heavier than any Republic cruiser. However, Yoda said slowly, armored man, with you, in private, speak we must. Jango Fett instinctively stepped forward, tension in his brow. His lips parted, ready to voice concern, not against Yoda himself, but the risk of what a duel between two overwhelming presences could mean for Mandalore. Especially after what he saw on Corta 6. But before he could speak a word, Jinwoo lifted a hand slightly and spoke first, his tone casual but final. Don't worry, Jango. I'm not going to crater this city anytime soon. Not unless someone really asks for it. He turned slightly, gaze flicking toward Yoda. Besides, Master Yoda's purpose is different from Dooku's. He doesn't come to claim anything. He's here to understand. Qui-Gon took a step forward, nodding toward Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan, go with Duchess Satine. Assist her with the peace talks. Ensure everything flows as it should. Obi-Wan hesitated a second. But Master, I'm not here to escort Master Yoda, Qui-Gon said quietly. I'm here because, I have a feeling I need to be. I want to hear this. Jinwoo turned his head slightly toward him, eyes narrowing beneath the mask. I guess it's not just Yoda who realized Dooku was holding back. He studied Qui-Gon for a moment longer. That level of calm, those instincts, no way he's just a knight anymore. Jedi Master, no doubt. And still not fooled by Dooku's half-truths. After 10 minutes, the three of them, Jinwoo, Grand Master Yoda, and Qui-Gon Jinn, sat within the deep, echoing quiet of the Sundari Royal Palace's private council chamber. The walls were elegantly curved, the Mandalorian crest etched along the columns, and soft blue lighting cast faint shadows across the floor. Jinwoo sat on one end of the long chamber table, arms folded, helmet reflecting the room's light. He stared straight ahead, unmoving. Yoda and Qui-Gon sat across from him, watching silently. 20 minutes passed. No words. No gestures. They're trying to gauge me, Jinwoo thought, his gaze hidden behind the visor. Trying to read me through the Force. See if I'm a Force user. Maybe even trying to peer into my face, but they can't. His lip curled slightly beneath the helmet. This exo-frame isn't just tech. It's Forerunner design. From a race that wiped themselves from the galactic map. Not even the Force is getting through it. On the opposite end, Yoda's expression remained unreadable, but his thoughts were growing louder within him. Useless, it is. Clouded, everything around him becomes. Not dark, but alien. Like he does not belong to this galaxy at all. Finally, after what felt like a standoff of wills, Qui-Gon leaned forward. I'll break the silence, he said calmly, folding his hands. First, let me thank you, armored man. Jinwoo tilted his head slightly but still didn't respond. Ki Gon continued, his voice measured, respectful. You saved Master Tyvoka's life. Prevented a massacre between the Republic and the true Mandalorians. That misunderstanding could have cost thousands of lives. He paused. Enemies and allies nearly traded places on Galadron. But you prevented that. Even if your methods remain unconventional. Jinwoo finally stirred, his voice steady and cold beneath the armor. Skip the formalities, he said. I already know what you both want. He leaned forward slightly, the tone in his voice turning razor sharp. But before we go further, who figured it out first? The seal. The one I placed on Dooku's mind and mouth, locking away what he knows about me. Support me on patreon.com, Xander 11111, extra 5 chapter. Xander's own creators' thoughts. 1 comments 0 vote. Mandalorian Civil War 7. The Meeting Part 2. There was a moment of silence. Then, without missing a beat, Ki Gon answered calmly. It was Master Yoda, he said, nodding once in the Grandmaster's direction. As always, his perception is sharp. He noticed something wasn't adding up in Dooku's responses almost immediately. He clasped his hands together atop the table. As for me, I began to suspect something when the duel didn't line up. Master Dooku is the finest duelist in the Jedi Order. Even Mandalorian fighting style shouldn't have overwhelmed him like that, not without the Force playing a deeper role. And then, he glanced at Yoda briefly. I consulted with Master Yoda directly. Shared my observations. His instincts confirmed it. Something had been tampered with. Something intentional. Jinwoo let the silence stretch again. Then, with a faint chuckle beneath the helmet, he nodded once. Bravo, he said dryly. You figured out the first puzzle. He leaned back slightly, arms still crossed as the shadows around his armor shifted subtly with his breath. Dooku asked me something, that you know as well, Jinwoo continued. He asked what I wanted. And I asked him the same. Yoda's ears twitched gently as he gave a small nod, tapping his Geimer stick softly. Yes, I know. He spoke with me, after your duel. He said, he wanted to reduce casualties. Jedi are peacekeepers no longer. Guardians of the galaxy, we have become. And your armor, Yoda looked at him directly. He said your technology could perform miracles. Regeneration beyond Bacta. Healing we've never seen. He saw a future where fewer Jedi died in war. Jinwoo tilted his head. At least you both see it. You're not blinded by the usual self-righteousness. Qui-Gon's voice followed gently, but, must you have sealed his memory? His words. Jinwoo didn't flinch. That was the wager. He won, he would have gotten my formula. I won, he gestured faintly with one gloved hand, and part of the truth about me stays buried. He leaned forward slightly, gaze sharp behind the mask. And more importantly, he was the one who proposed it. So determined that his idea of greater good was absolute. Ki Gon met his stare and calmly asked, may I ask that you release the seal? Jinwoo's response came without hesitation. No. That's something I won't do. Not now, and not for the next 20 years. Ki Gon gave a subtle nod, quietly accepting the rejection without further argument. Yoda, ever the pivot when tension rose, gently shifted topics. His voice was low and curious. Change the subject, I will. Corda 6, its landscape changed. A new map, they call it now. His ears twitched. Are you involved in that conflict, armored man? Jinwoo leaned back, a grin tugging beneath his helmet. Yeah, that was me. The battle with Tor Vizsla was entertaining. Yoda's ears twitched slightly, eyes narrowing with faint curiosity. Must you always wear a mask on every appearance? He asked, voice calm but probing. Jinwoo leaned forward a touch, his voice flat. Yes, I have a problem I need to solve first. Yoda hummed knowingly. I understand now. When Dooku said I would need to be ready in 9 years, he wasn't speaking out of pride. As for my current state, Yoda paused, tapping his cane once. I don't have the standing to free my apprentice. Jinwoo said nothing. But beneath the mask, his smile curved just slightly. Beside him, Ki Gon turned his head toward the small Grand Master and whispered, Master, what did you mean when you said if you fought this man, you would lose? Yoda kept his gaze on Jinwoo, but whispered back, he is not a Force user, at least, not as we sense it. And not from this galaxy. But in my gut, I feel it. His voice grew even quieter. Strong he is on par with Master Windu. Jinwoo rose from his seat. Can I leave now? I have other matters to attend to. He asked very directly. Yoda gave a small nod. Go, you may. Jinwoo turned without another word, his boots echoing against the polished floor of the Sundari Palace chamber. But just as he reached the doorway, Yoda's voice followed him, calm, but sharp with intent. Hear it, I did not. But all know what Mandalore holds, its treasure. The Beskar. You, armored man, what will you do with it? A mercenary type, you are. Jinwu paused in the doorway, 1 foot already beyond the threshold. His voice carried back with a grin hidden in the steel. To level myself up. And then he was gone. The room fell silent for a moment, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Qui-Gon turned toward Yoda slowly. Master Yoda, is he a Sith? Yoda didn't answer right away. His eyes remained on the door Jinwu had passed through, his expression unreadable. I do not know, Yoda finally said, his voice low and grave. But, I saw it. A faint trace. A shadow, very small, very distant. His ears lowered slightly as he added, that armor of his, it is not for protection. He turned to face his old student fully now. It is a cage. A restraint. Holding back something, vast. Jinwu stepped calmly into the next meeting room, the echo of his armored boots tapping across the sleek floor. The air inside held a weight, political, emotional, and historical. Seated or standing in a wide circle were the key figures of Mandalore's future and its fragile present. Duchess Satine Kryze, her younger sister Bo-Katan standing with arms crossed. Obi-Wan Kenobi at Satine's side, eyes alert but unreadable. Jango Fett and Jaster Mariel flanking a table at the far end. One a hardened bounty hunter, the other a weathered warrior who'd seen too much civil strife. Jinwu scanned the room and immediately noted a particular absence. Where's Pre Vizsla? He asked plainly, voice cool through his helmet. I know he's not a crybaby. He understands what his father chose. He should know the weight of that legacy. Bo-Katan, her expression sharp and defensive, answered before anyone else could. Let a man grieve, will you? You cleaved his father in half. Tor Vizsla died with his torso and legs separated by your sword. That's not exactly easy to get over. Jinwu didn't blink. That day, he said evenly, was war. He looked around the room, voice dropping an octave. Every cheat tactic, every ambush, every dirty move, all of it, legal. He chose that fight. He proposed the rules. He swung first. I just ended it. Jaster gave a subtle nod. And you ended a war we've been bleeding in for years. Jinwu leaned forward slightly, the faint mechanical hum of his exoframe settling with the motion. Before we continue, because honestly, it's been gnawing at me, I need to clear something up. His helmeted gaze moved between the two women. Satine Kryze and Bo-Katan Kryze. You're sisters, but the way you two clash, you're willing to tear each other apart over your ideals. The room held its breath for half a beat. Bo-Katan and Satine turned their heads in perfect sync and snapped in unison, piss off, armored man. Even Jinwu paused for a second, not expecting the exact same words from both. Obi-Wan blinked, his tone half in disbelief. I've never seen the day where Satine speaks like that. Satine gave him a quick glance, only slightly sheepish. Even I have limits, Obi-Wan. And this, Tin Man tends to test them. Bo-Katan smirked faintly. Internal problem, she repeated. Family business. You wouldn't understand. Besides. She nodded at Jango. We already know what you want. Jango filled us in before you stomped in. Jango gave a casual shrug. Figured it'd save time. Bo-Katan jerked her chin toward an open seat across from Satine. Take a seat. Jinwu said nothing. With a low hiss of his exoframe joints, he moved and sat down in silence, elbows resting on the chair's arms. The weight of his presence fell across the room like a drawn curtain. Bo-Katan crossed her arms, her tone clipped but composed. As temporary representative of Death Watch, we'll comply. Our former leader, she paused for a breath, got cut in half and his final order was to follow the armored man's command. That means taking refuge under Jaster Mariel and supporting Satine Kryze's rule for 20 years. Jinwu leaned back slightly in the chair, his fingers tapping once against the armrest. You still angry about that? Bo-Katan's eyes narrowed. You brutally killed him in front of his men. Some of them still can't sleep right. You left half of him twitching in the dirt. Yeah, I'm angry. And now we're supposed to hand over 20% of Mandalore's Beskar to the guy who did it. She scoffed. You didn't just take his life. You impacted Death Watch, shattered the old guard before the new one's even been chosen. Obi-Wan raised a brow, folding his arms calmly as he stood near Satine. To be honest, I'm just as surprised. Of all people in the galaxy, you, armored man, with arguably the most advanced technology we've ever seen, you're the one asking for Beskar. And not just a little. 20%. That's substantial. Jinwu sat quietly, Saying nothing, only that faint smile beneath his mask gave away any reaction. His silence, as always, spoke volumes. Satine took a calm breath, stepping forward slightly. Armored man, she said gently, I do thank you for ending the Mandalorian Civil War, even if only for 20 years. You've given us a window. A chance to rebuild. Perhaps even, a chance to change my sister's ideals. Bo-Katan immediately rolled her eyes, arms folding across her chest. That's not gonna happen. Not in 20 years. Not in 100. You pacifists need a reality check. Satine raised a hand, eyes never leaving Jinwoo. Let me finish. Bo-Katan scoffed but said nothing more. I know what Beskar is capable of, Satine continued, voice even. It's the hardest metal in the galaxy. Even lightsabers have difficulty with it. And I understand the value you're asking for. 20% is considerable. She clasped her hands in front of her. Could we negotiate? Perhaps 5% instead. A symbolic stake. You'd still be the only outsider with a claim. Bo-Katan glanced sideways with a smirk. At least my sister's finally learning how to negotiate. That's progress. Jinwoo tilted his head slightly, tone as casual as ever. Family power. Power of friendship. It really does run deep in this galaxy. He leaned back a little, his voice sharpening just slightly beneath the humor. But it's about to become seinen now that I'm here. That's when horrifying reality starts to seep in. Everyone paused. Bo-Katan blinked. Satine frowned faintly. Obi-Wan looked sideways in confusion. None of them understood what that meant. Then, with a soft mechanical whir, Jinwoo raised his hand, and pulled his weapon. The Vectivus lightsaber floated into the air, spinning once before dropping into his palm. He ignited it with a harsh snap hiss. A deep hum rumbled through the room as the black blade came to life, shadowy energy rippling across its edge. Obi-Wan stepped forward slightly, eyes wide. You have a lightsaber. Without a word, Jinwoo tilted the hilt forward and slid open a panel, revealing the rarest component of all. The black kyber crystal pulsed inside, exuding a pressure that felt ancient. Bo-Katan's jaw clenched as the tension in the room thickened like smoke. Her hands curled into fists, the muscles in her neck twitching as she glared at the black crystal in Jinwoo's grasp, an artifact that now carried the weight of their entire legacy. This, Jinwoo said, lifting the crystal for all to see, is a black kyber crystal. Very fucking rare in your galaxy. Maybe the last one of its kind. His gaze shifted across the table, Satine, Bo-Katan, Obi-Wan, Jango, and Jaster, burning into each of them with silent pressure. 30% of Mandalore's Beskar, he said flatly. Or I crush this crystal in my palm, and your precious darksaber will remain forever stuck, tainted, by that bled kyber I gave you. No future Mandalorian leader will ever wield it properly. Not without this. Satine hesitated, her voice quiet but uncertain. I don't know what the situation is with the darksaber. Bo-Katan snarled. You bastard. You planned this. Her voice trembled with fury. You knew from the start. You destroy the original crystal, give us a bled one, and now you dangle the other black crystal in front of us like a leash. Jinwoo stayed calm, voice cool and level. Satine already signed the deal. She suffered the most. She knows what's at stake. She was ready to give me 20% of the Beskar. He leaned forward slightly, tilting his head toward Bo-Katan. But you've been stomping around with that old mantra, Beskar is only for the people of Mandalore. You want to lock it behind tradition. And now. Support me on patreon.com, Xander 11111, extra 5 chapter. Xander's own creators' thoughts. 2 comments 0 vote. Mandalorian Civil War 8. The meeting ended. Jinwoo clenched the crystal slightly, just enough for everyone to feel the tension. I don't like waiting. 30%. That's the new deal. Or you and your Death Watch are stuck with a Sith-colored darksaber, and your future leaders will be mocked by every warrior who remembers what it used to mean. Bo-Katan gritted her teeth, fingers twitching near her belt. 17%, she countered. And you give us the black kyber crystal. Now. Jinwoo laughed softly. Shit, you really want to break tradition that badly. He leaned forward just slightly. The only thing I'll give you, is a chance. A challenge. The right to claim the black kyber crystal, 20 years from now. He pointed the crystal at her. Or you want to be remembered as the warrior who let the darksaber rot, stained in red. A failed legacy. Bo-Katan's face twitched, pride at war with logic. The silence held for several tense seconds, then. 20%, she muttered through clenched teeth. Fine. I agree. Jinwoo didn't move for a beat. Then, slowly, he pressed his fingers tighter around the black kyber crystal. A faint glow pulsed through it, dark, sharp, and terrifying. 30%, Jinwoo said coldly. I'm a businessman. You tried to play me, and now I squeeze you out. Don't fuck with a businessman. Bakatan's mouth parted, a protest rising, but she stopped herself. The air around Jinwoo was too thick, too still. Like standing next to a sealed coffin that could pop open any second. Across the table, Jaster leaned toward Django and whispered, if you ever want to make a deal with the armored man, read the contract very carefully. Django's reply was dry, but truthful. I read it 10 times when it came to him. Satine, who had stayed largely composed until now, finally spoke, her voice more wounded than angry. I never thought the armored man would be this cruel. I thought you were a hero. Jinwoo finally turned his helmet toward her, slow and deliberate. I came from a world, he said softly, where it's kill or be killed. Right now, I'm being kind. I'm being negotiable. Ask your death watch. The ones watching me so seriously. They probably didn't tell you everything I did at Quarter 6. He turned his head slightly toward Bo-Katan. Which, frankly, is for the best. The room fell into a deeper silence. Every breath felt like it had to fight its way through the weight pressing in. Django stared at Jinwoo for a long moment, beads of cold sweat forming on his neck. Ashbourne, he thought. He really is a horrifying monster. Behind the armor of the armored man, resides the Lord of the Dead. Satine broke the silence with a heavy sigh, placing a hand over her chest. It's my fault, she said, shoulders sagging. My mistake. 30% it is. I'm the one who listened to Bo-Katan, trying to improve our relationship. Obi-Wan turned sharply. Satine, isn't that a bit much? The Republic can help compensate. But Satine shook her head, voice firm but burdened. The Republic doesn't want our people to stabilize on their own. They're comfortable when we're fractured and dependent. My problems are still heavier than you know. Just then, Jinwoo raised a hand. From the crown of his helmet, a small projection node extended, and suddenly, a full-scale holographic display formed in the air above the table, flickering into crisp focus. The image, a lavish Republic office. And seated behind the desk, was Ranulph Tarkin. The moment Tarkin noticed the transmission, he narrowed his eyes, scanning the holosource. Where's this signal coming from? He stopped. His eyes widened. Armored man, he breathed. You're alive. Thank the stars, I was just about to finalize your commendation. There's a ceremony planned, public, full honors, you'll be promoted as my personal ad. I'm calling in one of my favors, Jinwoo cut in flatly. His voice sharp and unamused. Can you do it? Tarkin sat back, straightening his uniform with a practiced tug, all business now. I'm listening. Jinwoo didn't budge, his tone as ironclad as his exo-frame. You see the woman behind me? He said, tilting his head slightly toward Satine Kryze. Make sure she is the legitimate ruler of Mandalore. 40 years. I don't want any shit, no power plays, no interference, no bureaucratic backdoors trying to dethrone her. Mandalore stays under her rule, uninterrupted. Satine blinked, stunned. 40 years. That sounds like a monarchy. Obi-Wan folded his arms with a sigh. Of course. You rescued Ranulph Tarkin just for this moment, didn't you? Bo-Katan clenched her jaw, eyes narrowing in bitter realization. This bastard, he planned this. 3 steps ahead. He knew our every move before we made it. Tarkin, still on the screen, gave a single nod of approval. I have considerable leverage with Chancellor Valorum and key Senate committees. 5 minutes. Then he added, almost smugly, also, armored man, I do hope you'll indulge me in a deeper conversation soon. About military coordination, perhaps. I'll be waiting, Jinwoo replied calmly. The hologram blinked off. Jinwoo leaned back a little and stretched his fingers. Now, does anyone have a holo news feed? I wanna hear it when the galaxy catches up to me. Jaster gave a short grunt. Here. Found it. He reached over and flicked on a portable holoprojector. The blue holographic newsfeed shimmered to life, and a calm but alert reporter's voice filled the chamber. This is Republic News Net. Breaking coverage. Satine Kryze has officially been ratified as Mandalore's sovereign leader for the next 40 standard years. The motion, surprisingly, was fast-tracked by Senator Ranulph Tarkin with full backing from the Chancellor's office. No opposition recorded. Jinwoo leaned back with a casual sigh, his armored fingers tapping the armrest in rhythm. The holofeed flickered in the background, replaying Satine's official appointment like a victory anthem. And that's checkmate, he murmured with satisfaction. Satine blinked, then looked up at the ceiling half in disbelief. And now I'm ruler of Mandalore for 40 years, what star did I pray to last night? Obi-Wan folded his arms, raising a brow. This isn't the Jedi way, armored man. Bo-Katan scoffed beside him. And it sure as hell isn't the Mandalorian way. Jinwoo tilted his head lazily. Oh my god, now I understand why Order 66 was so damn efficient. Everyone in the room turned toward him in synchronized confusion. Order what? Obi-Wan asked, puzzled. Satine frowned slightly. Is that some kind of military command? Bo-Katan narrowed her eyes. Is that a threat, you smug bastard? Jinwoo gave a silent shrug beneath his armor. Nah. Just a thought. Now can we finalize the deal so I can get out of here? Bo-Katan looks like she's 5 seconds away from trying to kill me. Bo-Katan crossed her arms and sneered. Oh, I will kill you one day. I'll strip that cursed armor off your corpse, take the darksaber, and pull the black kyber crystal from your cold, dead hand. It won't be Pre Vizsla who holds it, I will. Jinwoo tilted his head slightly, amused. Shame, really. Because Pre Vizsla's the one currently holding the darksaber hilt. If you want it that bad, guess you'll have to kill each other first. Bo-Katan's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Satine exhaled slowly, brushing past the tension in the room. Jaster, she said calmly, can you give me the deal papers? Jaster nodded once. As you wish, Duchess. He retrieved the datapad and stylus, handing them to Satine. She scrolled through, paused, then modified the agreed amount, adjusting the Beskar allotment from 20% to 30%. Without hesitation, she signed her name and turned the device around. Armored man, she said, steady voice cutting the air, your turn. Jinwoo stood, stepping forward silently. He took the stylus in one hand, flipped it, and signed with the unmistakable curved glyphs of the Forerunner language, symbols ancient and unreadable to most of the galaxy. As he finished the last stroke, the datapad pinged in confirmation. Done, he said. Finished. As the datapad pinged and the deal was sealed, Jinwoo slid the black kyber crystal back into the hilt of his Vectivus lightsaber. A low hum pulsed once, then vanished as he stored the weapon back into his inventory. Bo-Katan crossed her arms and scoffed. Most of Death Watch and Mandalore won't help you as you mine the Beskar, armored man. You'll be all aloe. The door hissed open. Jinwoo was already gone. Satine muttered under her breath, at least wait for someone to finish a sentence, Mr. Speechless. But before anyone could process the moment, a voice echoed down the corridor. Loud, clear, furious. This is Pre Vizsla. And I stand before the armored man himself. Satine froze. Obi-Wan's brows furrowed. Bo-Katan's eyes went wide. Jaster and Jango exchanged looks. They all had the same thought. Oh no. Together, they rushed into the corridor. What they saw made even Bo-Katan's breath catch. Pre Vizsla stood armor polished and gleaming, his face shadowed but determined. And behind him, hundreds of Death Watch soldiers, fully armored, lined in formation like a private army. The darksaber hilt was gripped in his hand, black blade unignited but resting against his armored leg. Jinwoo said nothing. Just stood there. A shadow encased in iron, unmoved. Pre Vizsla stepped forward, voice steady. Armored man, you killed my father. But I heard how you did it, with honor. And for that, I offer respect. The darksaber hissed to life in his hand. The blade ignited not in its traditional white-edged black, but blood red. Tainted. The bled kyber crystal still pulsed within, a taint that had never healed. I'll honor his request, Pre Vizsla continued. And as you command, we'll support Duchess Satine cries for the next 20 years. After that, he raised the blade slightly, eyes narrowing. I'll fight. I'll take the black kyber. Jinwoo casually reached out and tapped his shoulder, cutting him off mid-declaration. Yeah, good speech, he said dismissively, voice flat. Then he turned slightly and looked at the 100 Death Watch soldiers. Stand aside. Move. Without hesitation, every armored warrior shifted, stepping to either side in unison, creating a perfect path. Yes, new leader, they said in unison. Jinwoo walked through them like a ghost through a battlefield, heading toward the exit, footsteps echoing without urgency. Pre Vizsla gritted his teeth, gripping the darksaber tighter. At least listen to your opponent, damn tin can. No reply. Just the sound of Jinwoo's steps growing fainter. Satine blinked, arms crossed, expression half incredulous. Is he always that rude? Jango Fett sighed, glancing sideways. Mercenaries are typically like that, my duchess. He paused, then added under his breath, but that one's in a league of his own. As Jinwoo stepped outside, the crisp Mandalorian air brushing against his armor, His system window flickered to life, translucent and glowing faintly in his vision. Dot 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 dot. Notification. Event quest complete. Quest. Mandalorian Civil War complete. Description. Ensure Satine Kryze becomes the undisputed ruler of Mandalore while the Death Watch is severely weakened, but still has a chance to regroup. Gain legitimacy in both Mandalore and the Republic. Secure 20% of Mandalore's Beskar supply. Change the fate of Jango Fett and Jaster Mariel. Rewards. Holocron of Nomi Sunrider. 1x Companion Voucher. British Lost Belt Teleportation Voucher, Fate Grand Order, English Lost Belt. Penalty for failure. Loss of second anchor, nulled. Note. Do not eliminate the Death Watch entirely, ensure they are severely weakened, but still survive to regroup. Dot 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 dot. Hidden Event Quest. Complete. Description. You demonstrated that the armored man is a businessman, calculating and ruthless. From 20% to 30%, you reminded everyone that playing you comes at a cost. Reward. 700,000 EXP. Holocron of Cade Skywalker, Force Healing. Custom Color Kyber Crystal, choose any one color, permanently. Dot 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 dot. Jinwoo gave a slow, satisfied grin beneath the mask. 2 black Kyber crystals, huh. I just might be able to make that happen. Footsteps echoed softly behind him. Master Yoda emerged from the shadows near the palace wall, his tiny silhouette dwarfed by the towering structure of Sundari's dome. The ancient Jedi looked up, cane tapping gently as he joined Jinwoo's side. Enjoying the dome, I think, Yoda said, calm and curious. Jinwoo didn't look at him, still gazing outward over the horizon of the city. Yeah, he said after a pause. The dome's a symbol. Not just protection, but survival. What remains of Mandalore, and what's still worth fighting for? Mandalorian Civil War 9. Aftermath Part 1. Yoda continued staring at the horizon, the gleaming arc of the Sundari dome casting long shadows in the afternoon sun. Can we still talk some more, armored man? The Grand Master asked softly, sensing the moment was thinning. I can guess, you don't like the Jedi Order. But before the final word fully left his lips, Jinwoo was gone. No sound. No ripple in the Force. Just absence. The air shimmered faintly for a second where he stood. Nothing but silence, then a small static hum left in his place. A faint signature, untraceable to most, remained for only a breath. Slipspace. Not teleportation. Not force movement. Something else. Something more, alien. Yoda exhaled slowly through his nose, turning back toward the palace with a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Man in a hurry, off to another mercenary job, perhaps, he muttered, amused. Footsteps approached behind him. Qui-Gon Jinn came to a slow stop beside the small master, arms folded behind his back. A mercenary who's more ruthless than any I've seen, he said. The way he negotiated that Beskar deal, brutal. But he stabilized Mandalore. 40 years of peace under Satine Kryze. No bloodshed. No invasion. He paused. This man keeps his word, master. But, he doesn't know forgiveness. Or restraint. Yoda's eyes didn't leave the dome. Or maybe, the old Jedi whispered, voice almost a breath, he already is restraining himself. And what we saw today, that was already his limit. The wind howled softly through the craggy cliffs of the abandoned Mandalorian mine, once dormant, long forgotten, now reclaimed. Jinwoo stood at the edge of the shaft, arms crossed as he looked down into the dark hollow that had once fueled 1,000 weapons of war. The silence was broken only by the hum of his system's voice, cold, calculated, ever vigilant. Suggestion added, Supreme Executor, offensive bias stated, voice echoing crisply through the neural link. Shall I dispatch Sentinel units to begin extraction procedures within designated mining zones? Jinwoo answered without hesitation. Proceed. Mine 30%. Transport it via slipspace network to secure containment sites. I want full analytics. Composition, alloy quality, forging compatibility, reaction with force-imbued elements. Everything. Affirmative. A soft pulse resonated through the air as offensive bias activated the mining protocol. Above the mine, 4 glowing circular slipspace gates tore themselves into existence, smooth, controlled. From them emerged shimmering black and purple sentinel units, each levitating effortlessly, long mechanical limbs already unfolding. Lasers and scanning arrays activated with a soft hum, mapping every crevice and mineral vein within the vast underground complex. Scanning terrain, subsurface structure integrity, 74%. Deep core Beskar vein detected. Coordinates locked. Beginning seismic stabilization. From the gates, additional drones emerged, massive drill claws rotating into position, supported by hovering cargo haulers ready to phase raw or into containment. Slip space relay established. All mined Beskar will be routed to Vault Theta 3. Estimated yield, 30% of Mandalore's active Beskar reserves. Projected refinement time, 2 hours, 47 minutes. As the operation unfolded beneath his feet, Jinwoo's visor shimmered faintly, watching live telemetry feed through his HUD. Show me prototype applications, he ordered. Understood. Initiating experimental pathways. Offensive bias continued. Beskar Forerunner alloy interface, viable. Conversion into Sentinel armor plating confirmed. Integration with lightsaber resistant tech, confirmed. Fusion with Shadow Essence, pending analysis. Testing deployment of phase suppression blades in progress. The abandoned mine roared back to life, not with miners or workers, but with machines far beyond Mandalore's understanding. A new age of Beskar had begun, forged not by Mandalorians, but by a shadow from another galaxy. Jinwoo simply stood there, still as stone, watching his empire of metal rise. The metallic hum of distant mining sentinels echoed through the canyon like a declaration of dominance. The veins of Beskar deep beneath Mandalore were no longer just remnants of a warrior culture, they were his now. Claimed. Operational. Weaponized. He exhaled through his nose, calm but satisfied, then opened his inventory with a flick of will, summoning forth the ancient holocron of Cade Skywalker. A pulse of cyan light blinked from the artifact. Without a word, Jinwoo let his Shadow Monarch power engulf the holocron. It dissolved in dark mist, absorbed into his soul. Notification. Gained 2 force abilities. Force and Rage. Force Healing Cade Skywalker variant. Notification. Level up X2. System status, synced update. Name, Sung Jinwoo. Alias, The Armored Man, Ashbourne, Joe Everbidini. Anchor status, 2/4 second anchor, The Dark Side Anchor. Age, unknown. Level, 18, Jedi rank, low-level Jedi Knight, Sith rank, low-level Sith Warrior. Express, 0.700,000. Midichlorian count, 50,000, second anchor realized. Occupation, unknown. Credits, 5 million. Updated from Sith Shrine loot. Battle equipment. Vectivus lightsaber, black-colored blade, black kyber crystal embedded. Proto-didact exoframe, restrains true power. Sentinel beam. Cindershot. AI companions. Offensive bias war executor class AI. Despondent Pyre, secondary monitor AI. Inventory. Incomplete Starforge ×1. Holocrons of Sith Shrine, still being analyzed. Holocron. Ritual of Immortality. Blood Kyber Crystals ×30. Kyber Crystal Shard ×2, bound to Jinwoo. Sith Warblade. Sith Alchemy Relics. Other Sith Shrine relics, still being analyzed. 5 times Gotcha vouchers. Zeta Halo ownership. Revan's armor and mask. Companion voucher ×1. Mantle's approach teleportation voucher ×1. Full Kyber crystal ×1 bound to Jinwoo. Blackstone Fortress teleportation voucher ×1. Darth Vitiate's personal holocron ×1. Custom color Kyber crystal ×1. Holocron of Nomi Sunrider. British Lost Belt teleportation voucher, Fate Grand Order, English Lost Belt. Force abilities. Force Ghost. Force Phantom. Force Jump. Force Push Pull. Force Telekinesis. Force Lightning. Force Throw. Force Choke. Force Drain. Mind Control Manipulation. Mechu Daru. Transfer Essence. Force Healing Cade Skywalker version, Advanced Cellular Regeneration, Revive Algrade. Force Enrage, Rage Enhanced Precision and Brute Power in 6 minutes. Naga Satos, Battle Meditation, Projective Telepathy. Midichlorian Manipulation, locked, requires 100,000 midichlorians. Skills and passive abilities. Master Swordsmanship. Expert Marksmanship. Adept Telekinetic Lightsaber Combat. Sith alchemy. Skill, Moor talisman. Right to claim Korriban as throneworld. Dot 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 dot. Titles. Sigma, boosts charisma and aura leadership, especially during crowd speech and political negotiation. Level, Adept. Endbringer of the Republic, only affects Joe Everbidini. Passive effect, induces fear across all factions except Abeloth. I am Armored Man, when using the exo-frame unmasked, seen as a galactic hero. Strong diplomatic leverage with Jedi and Republic senators, especially Ranulph Tarkin. Dot 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 dot. Jinwoo's grin lingered under the helmet as he closed his status window, the glow from the projection fading into the dusted shadows of the abandoned Mandalorian mine. The hum of the mining sentinels echoed faintly below the surface, a growing industrial heart now pulsing beneath his boots. Offensive bias, Jinwoo said, voice calm but laced with a glint of mischief. Have you ever heard of Hulkbuster armor? Clarification required, offensive bias responded. What is Hulk? Query interpreted as reference to brutes, from Covenant species. Clarify if applicable. Jinwoo let out a low chuckle, half amusement, half realization. Right, Halo Galaxy only knows what's inside Halo and DC. Marvel doesn't even exist here. So when I say Hulk, it means nothing. And Yoda didn't fight me back in Sundari, probably because Ki-Gon was nearby. But in 9 years. The Yinkori uprising, that's when it'll matter. Forget what I said, Jinwoo finally replied. Rename the project. Call it the Force User Buster. I'll guide you through the rest. Big armor, but not massive. Built to break Jedi. Affirmative, offensive bias acknowledged immediately. Awaiting schematics and design protocols. Initiating blank frame draft under new designation, FORCEUSER Buster, Mark 1. Meanwhile, back in the Royal Palace Council chamber in Sundari. Tension simmered like a suppressed reactor. Bo-Katan Kryze slammed her palm against the round table and snapped, Jastiel, what in the name of the galaxy happened on Corta 6? There's a new valley there. A crater bigger than the old trade post. And a massive pit that wasn't on any map. Across from her, Jango Fett leaned against the wall with arms folded, helmet off, one brow raised lazily. Shouldn't you just get over it? He said dryly. You lost. Death Watch is no longer under your command. It's under Jaster now. And we all agreed, Death Watch will support your sister for the next 20 years. Bo-Katan scowled but said nothing, her hands tightening around the edge of the table. Satine, for once looking more tired than regal, pressed 2 fingers to her temple and sighed. Sister, she said gently, could you please, just for today, not start a war inside this room? I have actual diplomacy to handle. Not just tradition and testosterone. Bo-Katan leaned back in her chair with a scoff, muttering, you say that like tradition didn't keep Mandalore from turning into another terrace. Jaster, seated next to Jango, pinched the bridge of his nose. This is why I preferred the battlefield. Less talking. Bo-Katan's gaze flicked to the door. Where is that tin can anyway? She muttered. He's too damn quiet after throwing our entire system into chaos. Suddenly, with a soft metallic hiss of opening doors, Pre Vizsla entered the chamber. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Everyone in the room, even Jango and Jaster, sat a little straighter. A quiet tension hung in the air like a blade waiting to drop. Bo-Katan immediately stepped forward, giving a subtle bow. Pre Vizsla, sir. Vizsla's helmet tucked beneath one arm, his expression unreadable as always. We're the losing party right now, he said plainly, scanning the room. Duchess Satine is, by contract and Republic blessing, the current leader of all Mandalorians. Satine stood from her seat, slightly startled but composed. Thank you, Pre Vizsla, for believing in my ideals. Jaster didn't speak aloud, but a heavy thought drifted in his mind. For 20 years, my Duchess. After that, they all become warmongers again. Beside him, Jango didn't look any more optimistic. His gaze remained fixed on Pre Vizsla, expression flat. The Duchess is too naive sometimes. Sweet words from wolves, that's dangerous. Pre Vizsla, still wearing that polite smile, tight, practiced, dishonest, tilted his head. As you wish, my Duchess. I shall follow. He paused, his voice lowering ever so slightly. But I do have a question. He stepped forward, placing a small holoprojector on the table. With a soft flicker, the image sprang to life, a live feed of a dozen Forerunner sentinels cutting clean through raw Beskar ore, sparks flying, drills humming, arms dissecting stone with terrifying precision. I was aware of the 30% deal, Vizsla said. But no one told me he had droids like the Trade Federation. Mining drones, that move like they're slicing butter. He looked up, calm on the surface. That wasn't in the contract fine print, Duchess. Bo-Katan and Satine both stared at the projection, then turned to each other, eyes wide. He has. They said in unison, voices rising in disbelief. Silence followed. The soft mechanical hum of the holofeed, the Forerunner drones cutting and grinding Beskar with inhuman precision, filled the chamber like a quiet accusation. Jango leaned back in his chair, arms folded, not bothering to hide his amusement. Jaster exhaled slowly. That's how he destroyed most of the Death Watch, he said flatly. Those drones came down from the sky when your father ambushed us. Fast. Surgical. They pierced through Beskar like paper. Vizsla nodded. I'm aware. My men told me. Those things dropped like thunder, and tore through the battlefield. His tone was cool, restrained, but there was a glint in his eye. They weren't just for killing, never thought they could mine too. Suddenly, without looking, Vizsla kicked Bo-Katan in the shin beneath the table. It wasn't hard, just enough to catch her attention. At the same time, his hand subtly flashed a gesture beneath his cloak, convince your sister. We need those drones. Bo-Katan sighed in her head, that's my job now, huh, older sister diplomacy. With a stiff sigh, she leaned forward and said, half forced, half persuasive, my dear sister, maybe you should talk to the armored man. I mean, look at this. His tech's on another level. If we had access to just a portion of it, it could double our mining output. Maybe more. Think of it as a fair exchange. He gets 30% of our Beskar, sure, but we get twice as much yield. Satine blinked, then smiled with that warm pacifist glow. Bo is right. That businessman should understand the value of mutual benefit. Bo-Katan's eye twitched. Stop calling me Bo. That's your childhood nickname for me. We're not 9. But Satine only raised an eyebrow, calm and cheeky. Still suits you when you're trying to play nice.